In an atypical universe, planet Earth was witnessing the 22nd century of the popular calendar in an era of great technological advances. Modern people, now dormant when it comes to pleasure, can only feel pleasure through virtual reality games. And the reason was simple. Advanced virtual reality technology made it possible to read electrical flows from brain nerves. All this to the point of making you feel like you're moving your body, which resulted in nervous stimuli. Currently in the 5th generation, the speed of nervous stimuli increased by 100 times, and these reach beyond the body and the 5 senses, going as far as thoughts. Amidst this dystopian world, the hero of the plot appears to be in his room in a somewhat embarrassing intimate moment. However, the misunderstanding was quickly cut short because his excitement of not being able to resist referred to playing the game in his free time. The hero is presented as the specialist gamer Lee Hoyan, but to be honest, he would like to stop playing. 10 years after the 4th generation, the Labyrinth City swept the world. The 5th generation, called the Labyrinth World, was launched in celebration of the 10th anniversary. Protagonist known as Lee Hoyan, among the 300 players who played the Labyrinth City, was also known as Rodrigo Eldrigo, ranked 97. It is said that the hero didn't want to stop playing because he was bad at the game. But anyway, he questions the purpose of this and can't resist because the developers begged him to come back and even sent him a free headset. Upon connecting to the Labyrinth World, the protagonist claims not to be an ordinary ranker. Quickly, the player Lee receives the user code identification as complete and is informed that Rodrigo's rank and points in the Labyrinth City will be transferred. They told the hero that the server had been expanded 100 times, and upon arriving there, he noticed it was really different from the beginning. The achievement points converted from the Labyrinth City total more than 1,900,000, so in creating the first character, 197,000 additional CP will be given. In this case, the hero is shocked by the system being so stingy and deciding to give him only 1 CP for every 10,000 achievement points. Thus, he is disappointed by how the rankers are treated by the company, and since the hero hasn't created a character yet, the system asks him to choose. Some character sheets are presented, such as the Enhanced Simple Sheet, the Unidentified Simple Sheet, the Yellow Simple Sheet, and the Luxurious Premium Enhanced Sheet. Given this, the hero understood that the developers made everything quite complicated, but Lee would never make the mistake of creating a bad character. In such a case, he wonders what the moderators are thinking. However, even if he thought for 100 days, his choice would still be the same. Thus, Lee selects the Luxurious Premium Enhanced Sheet of 1,500 CP while thanking capitalism. Despite the price being 3 billion, the hero remains skeptical because he is determined to spend the money he earned as a ranker. Then the system confirms the protagonist's selection and prompts him to create his character. With that done, and 197 CP remain for Lee, he decides to change his name to something cooler in the Labyrinth City, like Wilhelm Meyer. After changing his name, Lee believes it's time to use more of the money he earned in the previous game. In other words, he is not an ordinary ranker, and moreover, the absolutely low virtual synchronization rate required to be called a ranker alone poor control. These were the things that motivated the hero to choose another path, and irregular was the term used to refer to the pioneers who went in a new direction. Continuing, the hero confirms he is not just a strange guy, and in his mind warns the world to keep its eyes open because he will show his incredible skills once again. But now he decides to invest all this CP in something that, for now, is not revealed. After the hero's choices, the system checks the synchronization with the Labyrinth World, and after a processing period, synchronization is completed in the city of Brahm. In the city, everyone walks and completes their tasks normally as on any given day. However, the presence of a person with a mysterious countenance and a dark presence draws everyone's attention, scaring them. The presence of this man in armor and with a black aura quickly takes over the place, intimidating all those around him. Beside that man, a woman tries not to make eye contact, but the Black Knight brutally grabs the girl's hand. The man orders her to say the location of the guild without making noise if she wants to stay alive, and the girl, in tears, says she will do everything he asks. Given the incident, the civilians are frightened by such things happening during the day, but despite everything, they admire the man's imposing presence. With this, Keyser finds the location of the guild, and his notoriety increases by 1 point. And from afar, while the civilians cursed him and questioned why he was walking beside a weak adventurer. In the end, this combination of the two make no sense at all. Heading towards the guild, the adventurers pass through some alleys with suspicious people, and after a long walk, they finally arrive at the slum of Thrawn. Even in a hostile place, Keyser still maintained his harsh and aggressive demeanor, so the hero just wondered when things started to go wrong. Unexpectedly, this guy who looks like the boss of the demonic world is the slave the hero spent all his money to create. An hour ago, during character creation, the protagonist was impressed with the number of things he could choose and the quality of the character. Having acquired skills and even rare traits, this was the first time Lee managed to get the traits of a genius. Additionally, unique equipment and even rare armor were added during character creation. With this is a fact that people in that world will believe he is a veteran. Lee, who cannot become a third-class gamer, knows that this is the secret to overcoming everything and becoming a ranker. creating competent minions and enhancing them to the maximum. Thus, the system begins to create a minion character, and Lee's start as an irregular finally begins. It is said that those with money use everything on their minions. In this case, the hero would be no different in his choices to reach the top of the world. To date, only one man has succeeded in this field, and that person is Lee Hoyen himself. After a waiting period, the minions generation is finally completed by the system, summoning the warrior Caesar. Upon his appearance, just his penetrating gaze is enough to make Lee tremble completely, and soon all the character's information is complete. Although frightening, the hero understands that this is a minion who will obey all his master's orders, but he still believes he went too far with the customization. Without further ado, the Labyrinth World Game's start was given, and the system hinted that the updated version of the minions had loyalty, but it could decrease. Given this, the system continues, saying that in the worst scenario, the minion might even stop recognizing his master and leave, something that didn't exist in the previous game's system. In this case, the protagonist understands that something is very wrong because no matter how much he stares, he still seems anything but obedient. So the hero believes this worst scenario could happen due to some mistake causing his death. While thinking about the consequences of his choice, a boy hidden beside an alley observes him with malicious intentions. Without wasting time, he comes to attack the protagonist and hits him in the thigh. And receiving such an attack with his current low attributes, Lee falls to the ground defenseless, which initially seems to incite Caesar's fury. In such a case, being defenseless on the ground and with his back to his minion, Lee believes he is in the worst scenario. However, the warrior surprises by extending his hand just to help his master up. Given this, even though very scared, the hero refuses the help with a determined expression, and begins to use his control over his minion to resolve the issues with the boy who unexpectedly decided to attack him. It is said that causal relationships are automatically configured, and the relationships are adjusted to the character's personality. As a result, the relationship between Wilhelm Meyer and Caesar as a minion was established, and given Lee's attitude, he becomes the charismatic boss to Caesar. At this moment, the system informs that the minion is probably thinking about how incredible his boss is. Thus, Caesar managed to feel a badass vibe from the protagonist. However, if he fails to get badass, the worst scenario will happen. In light of this, the hero believes he understands, but also realizes he has messed up even more than expected. Given the recent events, the system gives the hero a subjugation mission to catch the kid in the alley. And it is said that if he doesn't catch him in 10 minutes, all his precious initial funds will disappear forever. With this, the hero realizes he was robbed when the boy bumped into him. In this case, already very irritated with everything that has been happening, Lee orders Caesar to go after the boy that he accepts again, feeling a tough guy energy from his boss. After giving his orders, Caesar quickly went after the little delinquent who stole the hero's belongings. As he watched his minion walk away, the protagonist thought that despite everything, he was still quite frightening. Following this line of thought, Lee's personality adjusts to earning respect through fear, and the hero threatens the girl, saying his minion is very competent. In this case, Lee warns that if the girl values her life, she should make sure to behave properly, which she quickly understands. Thus, the hero states that he hates humans who don't stop talking, and the girl, in an attempt to survive, takes a coin out of her pocket to offer in exchange for her life. However, it is said that this is a Kupar coin, something that doesn't even buy an apple. In such a case, Lee decides to stop intimidating the girl, and finally, the system announces that the hero's minion managed to catch the thief boy. Then the protagonist thinks that his minions are really competent, doing a great job no matter what he asks. But the girl, scared, questions whether such oppression was really necessary upon seeing Caesar's arrival. Thus, looking at his minion, the protagonist also understands why the girl is scared. With the little thief tied with a rope to his sword, Caesar appears, stating he is back. And the Labyrinth World system explains that in the 5th generation of the VR game, when a small thief is caught, several choices are given. The player can take all the thief's money or build a good relationship with him and then get missions to retrieve only what was stolen. It is said that if the hero doesn't want any missions, he can just get the information he needs. Caesar states that for the crime of touching the boss's belongings and injuring him, the warrior decided to teach a basic lesson to the pathetic thief. And obviously, that situation generates extreme fear in the girl, but also affects the hero's psychology. In this case, the warrior asks why his master is trembling so much and questions if they have any problems. Then the hero remembers that if he shows a side of himself that isn't boss-like, Caesar will become less loyal to him. So Lee puts on a tough expression while saying that his minion's way of handling things is too noisy, which leaves the warrior completely confused. He stated that there were no witnesses, and if the possibility of the boy speaking worried his boss, Caesar said he could deal with him right away. However, Lee, continuing his act, says that the boy's death wouldn't benefit him at all. Given this, the warrior begins to think about the benefits and ends that killing the boy might bring. After thinking a bit, the minion understands that his boss is right as expected. Therefore, he asks if his boss wants to find out where the boy's residence is to take everything, as only something like this could satisfy someone as impetuous as Lee. Additionally, the minion bows in reverence, apologizing for not realizing the protagonist's true intentions sooner. However, Lee is quite sad in his mind because what he actually wanted was just to get the mission from the boy, and at this moment, Wilhelm's notoriety increases. Kaiser, in turn, obtained 200 gold coins as an emergency fund from the boy, which surprised the protagonist that he had so much money. Given this, the boy explains he saw many rich people that day and comments that when the gates open, crowds of new adventurers enter the city. This means the boy stole the initial money of anyone he bumped into, whether they were players or NPCs, which is quite impressive. In this case, with a serious expression, the protagonist asks if the boy will continue to steal money from others, and in response, the boy says he will stop. However, that was not what the hero wanted to hear. In his mind, he wanted to hear a story about his sick mother and bullies who forced him to do this. If the hero could, he would help the boy get an honest job after getting him out of trouble, and then get some delicious rewards. But even before receiving any response from the boy, Kaiser interferes, grabbing the boy by the shirt while cursing and stating that Lee wants taxes from him. Having misunderstood due to his controversial personality, the minion shouts to the boy that his boss is ordering him to give 90% of his theft profits to him. Not fully understanding, the boy continues to say he will never steal again while begging for forgiveness, but this only manages to make the warrior more irritated. At the same time as he draws his sword from its sheath, Kaiser states that they have no use for a thief who can no longer steal. In light of this, the boy despairs and begs for mercy, stating that he will steal and do his best to satisfy the group. In this case, Kaiser ceases his attack, and the hero wonders in his mind what just happened. With this, the brat is completely subdued by fear, promising to pay taxes to the hero, and for controlling a minion to subdue others, new attributes appear. Thus, new charisma points are added. However, with a blank expression, the protagonist believes he doesn't need such charisma. After the incident, the warrior praises his boss for sensing a boy with so much money nearby and comments that thanks to him, they now have 200 more gold. With that said, not knowing what to say, Lee states that half of the collected money will be his subordinates, who promptly thanks him. In this case, the hero noticed that his minion's loyalty did not increase at all, and he thought the warrior would say something like it being the least his boss could give him. After another period of walking, the girl finally leads the two to the guild building. However, the building did not look anything like the place they were expecting. Lee doesn't understand what's happening because the Adventurers Guild is usually a huge building in the city center. Furthermore, it is said that a city like Bronx should have funds to build buildings with no reason for everything to be so run down as it appears. Upon entering the guild, the atmosphere is as tense as outside, and apparently, adventurers are not usually kind to outsiders. With the group's entry, all the adventurers blatantly stare at our heroes with apparent malice. Given this, Kaiser, irritated, questions what they are looking at and asks if they want to die. In this case, the protagonist becomes desperate, not knowing what to do about it. Turning to the girl, Lee asked where she had brought them, and she replied that she obviously took them to the criminal guild. Thus, the hero's anxiety shot up. However, considering all the recent events, he understood that there was no longer any reason to be surprised. Finally, the bartender of the place takes the initiative and welcomes the visitors, also asking what they want to order. In his mind, the hero already knew this would happen, and given their situation, Kaiser praised his boss's careful nature. He said that considering the hero had already gotten what he wanted, he would now get rid of the woman who no longer had any use. Given this, Lee doesn't understand why his minion is saying something so scary, but he knows he can't frustrate the warrior's expectations. In this case, even though reluctant, the hero returns to his Machiavellian personality and calls for his minion. He says that the brat from before committed several crimes and that even if they got rid of him, the authorities probably wouldn't come after them. However, the same does not apply to this woman, so if they mess with civilians, the authorities will come after them, and at the moment, the hero doesn't want to get involved in trouble. Given this, Lee asks if he needs to explain better for his warrior to understand, and with a serious expression, Kaiser understands that his master's reaction is as expected. With a loud shout, the warrior orders the woman to disappear from their sight and never show up in front of them again. Then, fearing for her life, the girl runs out of the guild without looking back, and Lee feels very sorry for her. She was the second woman the hero felt most sorry for in his entire life, because the first was the dark gamer he met in his past. They probably won't meet again considering how big this world is. Again, the bar attendant asks why the newcomers are there and wonders if they want to join the guild. In light of this, Kaiser confirms wanting to join and Lee follows him casually. The bartender, judging by the big man's appearance, states that in the coming days much blood will be shed in the alleys. Then he warns that the price to join the guild is 5 gold coins, but as the newcomers probably only have 1 gold for just arriving, he orders them to leave. Thus, Kaiser throws numerous gold coins on the table, which he got from the initial funds combined with the boy's loot. In this case, realizing that the newcomers had already acquired the necessary money, the bartender hands them a wooden plaque that will identify them in the place. Then Kaiser logically gets irritated that such a thing costs so much and questions if the man is trying to rob his boss. Upon hearing that the small boy is the boss of the brute, the morale of the bandits rises and they become incredulous at something so unusual happening. Therefore, the bandits question if the man actually owes something to the weakling and understand that there might be a possibility that the boy is someone impressive. However, they do not understand why the boy is wearing those clothes, considering he might be someone pretending to be a novice. But amidst all this relaxed atmosphere of drinking and laughter, Keezer suddenly appears behind one of the talkers. Quickly noticing the big man's presence behind him, he turns around scared, not understanding what's happening. However, Lee's minion gives the man no chance to react and hits him with a punch to the face, making him fall to the ground with a bleeding mouth. Faced with such disrespect, Keezer threatens the bandits who are gossiping about his master and says that this dump is irritating him. In this case, he says he will have to kill all the damned in the guild. With this, the tension fills the place and quickly all the bandits stand up, knowing that it will take many of them to stop this monster. At this moment, Lee shouts for his minion before he does something foolish, explaining that the slum has its own rules. In such a case, in a place like this, the rules must be respected above all. So despite his expectations being contradicted, Keezer decides to stop the commotion out of respect for his boss, leaving the bandit alone in a deplorable state on the ground and turning his attention to the bartender. In front of the man, Keezer asks if there is anything else to resolve, and Lee comments that since they are already there, he wants to work and be rewarded. With this, the bartender removes the restriction on the criminal guild's commission list for the newcomers. Thus, some missions are added. Rat hunting, which involves collecting 100 rat tails as well as collecting money from the debtor bill. And the patrol mission, which helps criminals commit crimes without being caught. However, none of these missions pleased Lee. This was due to the poor rewards offered and the time required to complete the missions. Considering his options, the only mission that seems good at the moment is to collect interest from the junk shop owner who hasn't paid the due taxes. Lee then says he will do the routine money collection and asks where Bill's junk shop is. Thus, the bartender says he will provide a guide for the hero. However, the man named Hans does not want to work for free. With arms extended for his payment and being very behind with the guild's dues, Hans states that nothing is free, as this is the guild's rule. In this case, Lee is disappointed and thinks that this is a guild specialized in sucking everything others have. Later, the warriors arrive at the slum market and continue to follow Hans, who is serving as their guide. While following the man, Keezer states that his boss hid something worthy of a boss, as he will try to take and sell everything in Bill's junk shop. However, Lee definitely doesn't understand what his minion is saying and knows that if he lets him do whatever he wants, he will create another problem soon. So the protagonist says that this time they need to have respect and asks his minion to make good decisions. Finally, the heroes arrive at Bill's junk shop and Hans enters the place to welcome them. Upon entering the shop, the protagonist believes that it does not look like junk, resembling more expensive items that can be reused. Noticing the presence of new visitors, Bill stands up to greet them. He says that judging by the boys' appearance, he doubts they have come to sell junk, so he asks if they are from the guild. Thus, Bill extends his hands to greet the visitors. However, Hans tells him to keep his hands away and comments that this guy doesn't wash his hands on purpose. Because of this, Keezer puts his hand on Hans' shoulder and tells him to leave immediately. Then the minion, with a diabolical smile, says he will respect his boss's wishes in place of respecting the slum's rules. Faced with this, Hans quietly asks our hero what his reaction is to the brute, but Lee decides not to respond, telling him to shut up. Then Keezer shakes Bill's filthy hands and the junk shop owner says it is a pleasure to meet the man. However, little by little, the warrior squeezes the debtor's hand more and more until it makes him start to moan in pain. With this, Keezer laughs, mocking the man who was previously happy to meet him and now is screaming in pain. Due to the prolonged exposure to that strong pressure, Bill finally collapses and falls to his knees, thus fainting on the ground. After a few seconds, the system notified that the very suspicious and indebted owner of the junk shop, Bill, had died. Under these circumstances, Lee panics in his mind because his minion just killed an NPC with a simple handshake. With the death of the junk shop owner, the protagonist receives 350 gold as interest from the system. Back at the Bandits Guild, Keezer throws all the coins they obtained onto the table, which somewhat surprises the bartender. Lee, in turn, explains that they did not touch the junk shop or the items inside, so the rest will be up to the man to handle. In this case, the bartender comments that there is nothing more to resolve there, and the system notifies that the criminal guild's routine money collection mission has been completed. With this, the hero obtained the reward of 2 silver for a total of 350 gold and 2 silver as interest, as well as 10 in guild contributions. However, the guild receptionist is suspicious, starting a non-verbal cold war by not stopping staring at Caesar. Lee thinks it's understandable since they were sent on a simple money collection mission and returned after killing the guy, bringing all the money he had. Then the bartender comments that it seems the heroes wouldn't have problems even if they went to the labyrinth now. However, he questions if it's worth dying to cause problems with such strength. Then Keezer responds that the boss wants things this way, so no other reason is necessary. Hans, also wanting to join the conversation, questions the boss why he ended up with that mission made for weaklings like them to sustain themselves. In this case, Lee explains that not many missions caught his interest, which leaves the bartender somewhat irritated. Given all this, the man inevitably decides to give up and seeing that the newcomers are full of money, decides to promote them right away. However, he warns that the promotion fee is 10 gold for 2 levels, which is not a problem for the heroes who are loaded with money. With this, the bartender finally hands the boys official guild member badges. He comments that they were made with magic, so they can identify each member, and besides that, it is possible to gain skills through the criminal guild. It is said to remember that you need to have guild contribution points to acquire skills, but the vigilantes recognize the badges, so it's necessary to hide. After hearing all the explanation, the hero tries to take the badges and thanks him, but the bartender removes them, saying he will only let them see for now. Lee believes he is being mocked, and the man continues explaining that it takes time to put the names and details of the members on them. However, Lee is completely irritated, so the man, understanding that the atmosphere has become tense, explained it was just a simple joke and began to explain about the accommodations. Obviously, things will not end so easily due to Caesar's personality, who grabs the receptionist by the shirt extremely agitated. To try to ease things, the man explains that the guild's accommodations are free. However, the warrior says he is not interested in those things and shouts that the point of his action is because the man dared to laugh at his boss. Once again, the protagonist's minion creates problems for him, and at this moment, he didn't want things to go this way. In a state of rage like never before, Kaiser states it is better to make a formal apology that satisfies the boss. Otherwise, his life will end today. Faced with this threat, the man asks anxiously if the warrior is not going too far, but Kaiser knows his convictions very well, and then strikes a powerful sword blow on the bar counter to show what he is capable of when he wants. This cut destroys much of the counter, and a dense dust rises in the guild while the warrior continues to hold the receptionist by the shirt. And with this, all the bandits start to leave the guild desperately, understanding that things will get ugly from now on. Again, the bartender apologizes for his behavior, saying he is very sorry. However, Kaiser orders the man to apologize to his boss and not to him, so very scared, he apologizes to the protagonist. However, the hero's minion questions where the receptionist's sign of sincerity is. Thus, the bartender takes out 100 gold coins from under the counter, and despite being little, he asks them to accept it. Unexpectedly, the protagonist receives 100 gold coins due to his minion's pressure on the man. Lee is positively surprised to have gotten so much for a simple apology, understanding it to be very profitable. With this, the two look at each other, but the minion misunderstands his master's intentions, thus pressing the bartender again to give them more things as an apology. At this moment, the hero panics because his minion is so crazy, and more than the hero, the man in his last act decides to offer something else. Thus, he takes out a long sword from the counter, sharpened with +3 strength properties of magical class. With the sword in hand, the hero understands it to be a decent weapon, and because it has a strength and edge, it can cut objects without even touching them. It is said that the sword can cut from about 2 centimeters away, making it an incredible blade for close combat. With this, everyone turns their attention to the protagonist, who is testing the sword. After taking a good look, Lee reacts with a low murmur and a slight smile. However, his subordinate again misunderstands things, getting more irritated than ever. The protagonist is confused, but without time to interfere, Kaiser steps forward, questioning with his sword drawn how the man dares to give them something so bad. Lee, on the other hand, reaches the peak of desperation, not understanding what his minion wants now since he was already satisfied. In this case, the warrior states that he will teach the receptionist, who doesn't know his place, some manners. And finally, he prepares a strike with his sword that will end everything, including the man and the very structure of the guild. But before hitting the bartender, a sword defends the man, stopping the warrior's attack. Then a pink-haired girl appears from a gate at the top of the guild, questioning what all the commotion is about. At the same time as she notices a powerful man in front of her, he tells the girl not to interrupt them and insults her. In such a case, the girl bursts into laughter upon realizing that a crazy stone guy has appeared in the guild and also asks the man's name, which he gives as Kaiser. Then the protagonist's minion asks the girl's name, and she reveals herself as the Royal Highness Lena. Given this, everyone's attention in the place turns to the protagonist, who is the boss of that quarrelsome man. In his mind, the hero believes that speaking this way in front of a powerful lunatic like his minion is asking to die. Thus, Kaiser insults the girl again, saying he will only say one more time for her not to interrupt them. And she laughs, questioning why the warrior asked her name if he continues to insult her. Given this, the protagonist understands that his minion has already given the girl 2 warnings. According to Caesar's settings, it is to be imagined that he has been through a pandemonium in the past and should be able to identify another strong individual. It is a fact that if that warrior is hesitating, the girl must not have ordinary strength, possibly being someone even stronger and more experienced than him. And inevitably, this could mean that the girl is a superior member of the guild who lives in this building. Upon closer analysis, the protagonist understands that the girl's reaction speed also demonstrated to be very high. Kaiser has 20 strength and 10 agility, being very fast considering his strength, which prevents anyone from calling him slow despite being strong. However, agility is much more than just being fast. It's about things like dynamic visual activities and reflexes. A person with high agility, even if moving at the same speed as an ordinary person, has more chances of dodging an attack to a vital point. This whole situation was a mess because the hero didn't want to risk anything by having to face someone so strong so early on. However, more than anything, he knows that if they back down now, his minions' loyalty will drop. Thus, Lee curiously asks about the girl's name, whether it is Lucy or Lena, because he was so nervous that he forgot. After discovering the girl's name, Lee asks Lena who is to blame when a store assistant makes a mistake, whether it is the store or the assistant. In this case, the girl understands that the hero doesn't want to complicate things. Therefore, he continues explaining that if an employee makes a mistake and the customer points it out, the only thing expected is a sincere apology. Inevitably, Lena agrees with the point raised by the hero, so at this moment she draws her sword, striking the previous guild emblems and taking them in her hand. With a smile, she states that she heard the two talking about the silver emblem, which means they're trying to become official guild members. With this, the girl asks why they are talking about being customers because at the moment, they are not official guild members, but rather temporary ones. In this case, she questions if the boys understand that they are like lousy employees who only clean the floors and windows, which impresses Lee with her perfect logic. However, being exposed like this hurt the protagonist's pride, so he decided to take this fight to the end. In response to the girl, Lee shows Lena the bag of money he has and asks if she's ever seen a lousy employee with more than 500 gold coins. Upon witnessing such wealth, the girl is left speechless and impressed, commenting that with that amount, he could open his own shop and wouldn't need to work for others. To clear up the girl's doubts, Lee explained that he chose to work for others because big shops generally always know how to operate. In conclusion, the hero stated that this experience is the wisdom that even money couldn't buy. This is what he wants and what ends up winning Lena's heart. Extremely excited, the girl says she liked that and recalls that Kaiser called him boss, thus asking the hero's real name. He responds that it is Wilhelm Meyer, and Lena is even more impressed because even his name is cool. In this case, the girl's eyes sparkle, and she comments that she is liking the protagonist more and more. Then, with her sword pointed at Caesar, Lena states that she will no longer get involved in the boys' matters. This leaves the bartender desperate, as the girl refuses to perform her duty as the branch's protector. As the girl leaves, the man threatens her, saying she won't be okay after making a decision like that. However, Lena is confident that nothing will happen because, unlike the man, she is smart and competent, someone that the branch manager certainly likes much more. With that, the girl leaves and puts the bartender in a critical state of helplessness. And since there is no one else there to stop him, Kaiser kills the criminal guild's shop assistant. The system informed that Caesar's notoriety increased by 10, and Wilhelm Meyer's notoriety increased by 20. Lee, on the other hand, didn't understand anything that was happening there, and Kaiser, after executing the man, asked his boss to try to control his anger. Some time ago, the girl was having a boring afternoon in the guild's attic. The idiots in the criminal guild were being unproductive while drinking and betting on making dark humor jokes, but no one wanted to pick a fight with them. The girl couldn't believe she was waiting there to protect these bandits. In the end, Lena was dying of boredom, and if it weren't for the guild's contribution, she wouldn't even bother doing it. It was then that Kaiser caught her attention by destroying the counter with a blow from his sword. Surprised by the incident, the girl noticed that a fight had started. At that moment, people were being thrown to the ground while others were running away to save their lives. Kaiser was the warrior the girl saw as the cause of the confusion. This man exuded an unwavering bloodlust, giving a beating to all those vermin. Then Kaiser ordered the bartender to apologize to his boss, not to him, and that was when Lena became even more curious about a guy like that having a boss. The girl looked around the room, trying to find who could be superior to the man. However, she only found an ordinary person with tired eyes and old clothes, who unexpectedly seemed to be the boss. At this moment, the receptionist handed the heroes 100 gold coins as an apology. However, the boss's reaction went beyond what the girl could imagine, showing a face of dissatisfaction with the acquired reward. And even when the shop assistant immediately picked up a good sword, the boss's reaction again went beyond what she imagined, showing a cruel expression that said, "I can't believe you showed me such a bad sword, I won't forgive you." With this, Lee's minion, witnessing his boss's expression, took the necessary steps to punish the man who tried to give them such a horrible sword. However, it was at this moment that Lena decided to interfere, as killing the guild assistant is the same as committing suicide. Thus, she knew she had to intervene and did what was necessary to prevent things from getting even more complicated. At that moment, Lena was very confused because shortly after, she was confronted when the hero showed he had 500 gold coins. However, when the protagonist commented about the wisdom that even money couldn't buy, the girl was sure. With a smile, she was excited to be right about her convictions regarding the boy. And as it happened, she decided not to get involved anymore because she was certain of the enormous potential that Wilhelm, with his tired eyes, had. However, the truth was that the protagonist was horrible at games and had a poor synchronization rate, which resulted in that irregularity in his eyes. Back in the present, Kaiser's bold strike created an unprecedented event, being the death of the criminal guild's shop assistant. It is said that if the guild decides to place a bounty for revenge, not even Lee's warrior will be able to stop them. One could say that the plans to play normally in the labyrinth world will be ruined. However, the hero thinks it has always been this way and that nothing seemed normal from the start. At this moment, Lee turns to his minion, commenting that he has always done what he wanted and questioning if he knows what he did wrong. In this case, Kizer says he understands that a mere assistant is not enough to calm his master's anger and mentions that he should go after his family too. With a strong laugh, Lee's minion apologizes for this disloyal act on his part. In response, Lena returns from the attic and comments that Kizer's boss is truly monstrous, saying she has never seen someone with such a cold-blooded nature before. Lee understands that the girl in front of him is the powerful guild member now and considers the possibility that she is trying to report what happened there to the headquarters. With this, Kizer gets irritated because, in his mind, the woman is stating the obvious and claims that his boss is so tough that he will create a dark organization to destroy the world. However, Lee is not happy with this compliment and hopes his minion stops this kind of talk because, at this rate, he will be treated as a fool. After analyzing how the minion talks about his boss, the girl says it seems incredible and descends from the guild's attic. Then she promotes herself, saying she's in the prime of her life at 16 years old and has VIP member protection skills, besides being good at assassinations. Additionally, she has connections within the criminal guild, being an assassin who hopes to become a cute and lovely woman in the future. In this case, she excitedly asks Kizer if he doesn't believe she has the talents his boss needs. Given everything the girl said, the things that negatively marked the protagonist the most were the adjectives cute and lovely. After absorbing what the girl said, Lee asks if she recognizes what she just said, and Lena promptly agrees. Pointing to Caesar, the girl says she probably knows why this silent homicidal maniac follows a boss like Lee. In this case, the protagonist understands he is surrounded by frustrating people, but he doesn't want to know anything about it. As the maniac said, the boss will create an evil organization that will destroy the world, which is of great interest to the girl. With her sword raised, Lena states that if it is such an incredible organization, it will be 100 times cooler than this monotonous criminal guild. Thus, the assassin Lena very much wants to apply for a position in this job. However, she informs that the fee to have her is fixed. However, the protagonist seriously states that he has nothing to give her and tells the girl to get what she wants on her own. With this, the girl becomes even more excited by the protagonist's attitude and accepts the conditions, informing that from now on, she will be the boss's second minion. The system informed that this was a great ascension because the hero accepted an assassin as his minion despite her status, and as a result, he gained 3 charisma points. Additionally, Kizer's loyalty increased by 1, but the hero did not quite understand it since he treated the girl rudely, and she was happy. At this moment, Lee has in his band a crazed homicidal maniac and an assassin, having just acquired a female Caesar. After leaving the guild, the heroes go to Brahms Square and Lee's minion questions his boss if that weird girl will be okay. With this, the protagonist remembers that before leaving the establishment, the girl informed him that she had already memorized his face and said she would find them later. But Lee just asked his companion to forget it because he doesn't want to waste time on such things. Overall, the boy hasn't done anything special so far, but is already exhausted. After seeing this warrior's behavior in the criminal guild, it was clear that he would also swing his sword in the adventurer's guild, saying he was looking for trouble. And the conclusion of this is a dead end because Lee's character will disappear and his relationship with Caesar will end. Being a minion worth $300 million, Lee knows he can't stand by and watch what he spent 10 years of rancor money on become a random NPC. Faced with his master's stare, Kizer asks if Lee has something to ask him. With this, the hero panics, looking for something to justify his stare until he finds a girl crying among the citizens of Brahm. Therefore, the protagonist asks if his minion sees the little girl crying, and then he is answered that he does. In this case, seeing that child, the hero asks what Kizer wants to do with her. Since it is a complex question for the warrior, he thinks for a bit but soon comes to a definitive conclusion. With an evil expression, the warrior asks if his cruel boss wants him to turn the girl into a swindler. However, this was exactly the opposite of what Lee wanted, but he understands that his minion is someone with a wicked personality. In this case, the hero states that he is not talking about his intentions and is asking what his minion really wants to do. Thus, Kizer begins to think about what he really wants to do, and looking at the crying girl again, he realizes he has a different opinion. Therefore, the warrior comments that it is something insignificant to want to do anything about and decides to leave with the hero. Later, after a long walk, the main group arrives at the immense Adventurers Guild of Brahm. Inside that place, many players are arguing among themselves, and in the face of all that, the protagonist understood that the level of change was really surreal. Kizer, in turn, states that the queue seems unnecessarily long, but Lee just tells him to shut up and get in line. Despite being rude, his minion showed no antipathy to this. In this case, the hero believes he is beginning to understand how to deal with that maniac. In the background, some adventurers comment about the guy in beginner's clothes having just ordered around the terrifying warrior and speculate that he might be someone pretending to be a noob. All that chatter really makes the warrior happy because he likes being feared by others. After waiting a bit in line, the receptionist informs them it costs 1 gold to register. With everything paid, the girl shows the adventurer's ID that can be used in the labyrinth city of Brahm, and Lee asks how the object can be used. In explanation, she kindly asks them to return the ID after putting a drop of blood on the pocket watch. Then she explains that information from the status window will appear, and based on this, the integrated system will analyze the status, skills, and traits. After that comes the class acquisition, where they suggest the optimized class based on the skill calculations. Considering this, Keyser shouts to create more confusion, alerting everyone to prepare as their miserable souls might see the capabilities of his boss. This, along with a never-before-seen red pocket watch, but the hero feels extremely embarrassed despite not showing it. He explains that he doesn't want to waste his blood on insignificant things despite being curious about everything. Because of this uncomfortable and tense atmosphere, it seemed that the adventurers were afraid of the hero, who now prepares his evaluation by cutting his finger. It is said that this was probably because Lee had 4 fixed statuses that mediocre people could never dream of having. However, in the end, what really mattered was the person's status and charisma. Thus, the boy gets carried away by emotion and starts to get scared of his own potential expectation. The hero thinks that a guy like him being able to command someone like his minion is already admirable in itself. In this case, a class will enhance him even more, so after putting his blood on the pocket watch, the protagonist decides to take a look at his options. Calmly, he watches the guild receptionist open the system to show the options, but something surprises him. Unexpectedly, Lee's options were reduced to the classes of swindler, con artist, and armed robber. With this, Lee doesn't quite understand what is happening for such bad classes to have come to him. More than the hero, Keyser notices something wrong with it, which riles him up. After the hero's minion witnesses his master's class options, his expression becomes serious and Lee enters a state of panic. All this because he knows that if this is his type of class, his authority as a boss will fall. Stopping to think, the protagonist begins to recall everything he has done since he came to the labyrinth world. He threatened a civilian, attacked a criminal, and killed an NPC who owned a junk shop. However, all of this was done by Caesar, but Lee received the notoriety. In this case, the boy understood that he was very careless, and it was obvious this would happen, and in the end, he was cornered. However, Keyser unexpectedly shows satisfaction with his master's classes and says they suit Lee, who, for a moment, doesn't understand the reason for that reaction. However, after a few seconds, the class options change to new ones. The hero asks the receptionist why the classes changed while Keyser boasts to the adventurers about his master's great potential. The receptionist informs them that the integrated system uses very limited information to compute the list, but calculating extra instead of basic statuses delays the analysis. Finally, the hero understands but realizes that those classes also do not seem like normal classes. Keyser then intervenes, saying that a great boss must have a great minion, and since he is Lee's only one, he believes he is the greatest contributor. The protagonist tells him to shut up, so the warrior understands that his boss doesn't need advice as it is an obvious choice. Thus, the warrior laughs proudly while the hero ends up choosing the boss class under pressure. The system informs that the boss belongs to high authority and uses charisma to command the organization. Furthermore, the stronger the organization members, the stronger the boss. With the overwhelming charisma of the class, the player will be able to spread his influence throughout all corners of the labyrinth. In the end, the system informs that the protagonist has achieved feats incredible and incomparable to those of an adventurer by using his skills as effectively as possible. With that having passed with the dude leaving the guild, Lee asks what class his minion shows, and he explains that it is a simple killer. In the hero's view, this class really suited Caesar, so the boy wasn't even surprised. Thus, the warrior thanks him, and Lee feels indignant in his mind because it was not a compliment. Later in the Adventurers Guild Hall, a bunch of people are on the guild benches. Amid the warriors, Keyser intimidates them, saying they should consider themselves the real lucky ones there, and then one of them shouts, thanking him. The hero, on the other hand, doesn't understand why the adventurer is acting this way. With that, the hero's minion announces that for those with good reasons to leave, clemency and the benefit of living will be granted. The minion's attitude left the protagonist completely distressed, so Lee tries to calm things down by reminding the warrior that he said to respect others. Thus, Keyser says he remembers and apologizes for his actions. Then he says he will correct it right now, keeping the promise to leave the adventurers alive. This only leaves the hero even more worried, not knowing why the warrior is acting like this out of nowhere. Moreover, he knows that if they cause problems there, the stronger members of the Adventurers Guild will not leave them in peace. With this in mind, Lee wonders if his minion is doing this because of the killer class he chose. It is said that killers are beings who get stronger by reaping as many lives as possible. In this case, Keyser proves to be an extreme concept maniac, but it is not unexpected for him to like the class he has. However, starting to kill people now without rhyme or reason is something that will cause problems for everyone. Thus, the protagonist questions the promise to leave them alive, which is probably just a lie. In a desperate act to save his life, one of the adventurers pulls out a money bag, saying he forgot to deposit it in his bank. Kizer asks how much it is, and the man says is 1 silver coin and 30 copper coins. Considering this, the warrior comments that people usually deposit money in the bank to keep it safer. However, he asserts that if the money stays with him, it will surely be much safer than in a simple bank. This act leaves the adventurers speechless, and Lee despairs even more as his minion tries to rob so blatantly in broad daylight. Then the adventurer starts to run desperately, as he is not prepared to lose all his finances to the bandit. However, before he could leave the place, he was hit by a dagger in his back. Kizer curses the man for his recklessness and says he won't just be begging for money. Furthermore, he claims that he left the man alive as promised because in his mind, being alive is what matters. The adventurer falls to the ground in a deplorable state, and the other warriors in the place are scared, understanding that this fate could also be theirs. In light of all this, the hero believes it is too late because if he lets one of the warriors leave there unscathed, they will inform the guards immediately. Thus, everyone will know about Caesar's crimes and the duo will be banned from entering the Adventurers Guild, having to deal with much worse problems. In this case, there's no other way to resolve this situation than to suppress all these potential enemies. Lee activates his special charisma skill and thinks he will do enough to make them too scared to inform the guild about what could happen to them. Unexpectedly, the skill does not bring the desired result, but Kizer understands that his boss is bored and stands up to intimidate the adventurers again. With his sword pointed at that useless scum of the earth, the warrior states that he will give them a single chance to relieve his boss's boredom, and if they fail, each one of them will be killed right there. Due to this terrifying declaration, several adventurers become desperate. However, 2 of them exchange a serious look, knowing what needs to be done. The blonde one of the 2 asks the man beside him his name, and he introduces himself as Melp. In this case, the first one asks Melp if he knows what the horse went to do at the phone booth. This strange question leaves everyone in the place confused, unable to understand the outcome. Since Melp doesn't know, the blonde proudly says that the horse went to make a prank call. Inevitably, silence reigns in the hall, and a few seconds after this shameless joke was told, Kizer explodes in fury because his boss would never laugh at that. The blonde now doesn't know what to do because that was the best joke he had. However, the warrior doesn't care and comments that the man wasted his chance. He raises his sword to end the adventurer's life, saying that anyone who dares to underestimate his boss must die. Unexpectedly, Lee laughs at the joke, which dissipates all the tension in the environment. Despite being quite predictable, the hero thinks he liked the joke a lot as it was funny in the end. However, this definitely goes against the expectations of the protagonist's minion, who finds his boss's reaction strange. Analyzing that expression, the boy doesn't understand if his subordinate liked his reaction or not. In the end, the protagonist understands that he can't even laugh, so he complains that his life will be very difficult in this world. To fix things, the protagonist claims that it wasn't funny at all, but even if he hadn't laughed, his minion would have killed them anyway. With this, the hero starts laughing while clapping more and more, reaching the level of a strong laugh. Unexpectedly, Kizer looks at his boss and comments to the adventurers that he has never seen him laugh so much before and praises the adventurers for their talent with jokes. Standing, the warrior says he is sure that the others already know what he's about to say. The man states that if the warriors are prepared to offer their lives, there is no such thing as the impossible. Thus, leaving if the adventurers desire something, they must take it with their own strength despite being scared. With this, the warrior warns with his sword pointed at them that those who cannot do this will not leave alive. At 3:15 p.m., the game was just beginning in that guild hall. The act of closing the adventurers guild in the restroom suddenly turned into a nightmare, and Lee could only feel bad for those guys. In the city of Brahm, a certain person is walking through the suburb. This person is Lena, who is walking there feeling very cold while thinking about the well-being of her boss along with the sword maniac. Despite her complicated situation, Lena is happy just thinking that her group must be doing something incredible somewhere. And the girl was not entirely wrong because Lee and Kizer were intimidating adventurers, forcing them to do things like knife juggling. In the process, the obvious happens and the warrior drops the knives, getting stabbed in his back and arm. And being 2 insensitive beings, the heroes laugh at the boy's deplorable situation. Back to the girl's thoughts, she is quite satisfied in her reflections. Lena fondly remembers her master's relaxed eyes that seem bored of any kind of danger, saying she can't guess what lies behind them. An intangible and shapeless charisma that, despite its known existence, does not alter other factors. The girl recalls that Kizer informed her that the boss was a leader who would create an evil organization to destroy the world. Thus, Lena finally begins to connect the dots and reach a conclusion about the things exposed. An evil organization that is beyond the criminal guild and one that will destroy the world can't be anything other than a demon lord. After coming to this conclusion, the girl bases her thought on Lee's eyes, which cannot be the same as those of an ordinary human. In the end, Wilhelm Meyer is someone who, to her, really plans to create such an organization and destroy the world. Back to the main heroes, one of the adventurers cries, saying she doesn't like this because she needs to make money for her sick mother's treatment. However, at this moment, the hero puts aside all of his concerns and critical morals of right and wrong. He states that the woman's performance is boring and demands she gives him a better lie. Far from the Adventurers Guild events, Lena gets excited because if world domination is her boss's responsibility, he can really achieve it. With this, the girl celebrates to the heavens and greetings to her boss and also feels proud to be the second minion of the future world dominator. However, she remembers that not long ago she couldn't even complete a simple task and ended up fleeing. In this case, the girl understands that she made a mistake on her first mission but believes that even the boss would have a headache if tracked by the guild. Putting these issues aside, Lena now returns to her duties, understanding that she will probably be of some help at this moment. Back in the labyrinth city of Brahm, the heroes are standing in the middle of the street, having a conversation. Keezer asks his master if he would like to say something, and the protagonist states that the wind is very cold and asks why his minion doesn't feel it. In response, the warrior says he is fine because those who wield a sword do not fall under any intense cold. With this, Lee understands that he can't complain about anything else to avoid seeming weak next to his subordinate. However, Keezer unexpectedly praised his boss, calling him incredible, which left the boy confused. In this case, it is said that even with such worn-out clothes, the hero is somehow fine in the intense cold of the night as expected. Lee, in turn, thinks that he is obviously cold due to his noob attire and believes that if his subordinate knew this, he could have given him a cloak. However, the protagonist thinks it's better to endure the cold silently, because he knows he won't have the energy to convince someone like that warrior. Despite everything, Lee knew that all this expensive equipment of his subordinate was from his CP, so offering a cloak wouldn't be a great sacrifice. Already irritated, Lee remembers Lena and wonders where she is and what she is doing because she suddenly disappeared. Thus, the hero kicks a trash can in front of him to vent his accumulated anger. However, unexpectedly, when the trash can falls to the ground and opens, it reveals the girl's presence inside it. In this case, with a serious face, the protagonist asks what she is doing in there, and Lena, for her part, just smiles because she knows she's already in trouble. Inside the trash can, the girl looks at the two on the ground while preparing an explanation. So she explains, saying that today was freezing and she couldn't find the hero even after looking in the Adventurers Guild. With that, she got tired of waiting and decided to take refuge inside the trash can, which left the hero confused because she couldn't wait it in the guild. Lena really hadn't thought of that possibility and questioned if her boss had been in the guild all this time, which Lee confirmed. Given this, the girl is disappointed because while she was waiting inside the trash in this cold, her boss was elsewhere. The protagonist in turn informs her that they were in the restroom, a very cozy and fun place. And Lena is impressed by the boy's audacity and comments that there are also criminal guild members associated with the Adventurers Guild. She says that if the hero met any of the members, it could cause quite a commotion. In this case, Keezer asks his boss if this means what he is thinking, but Lee doesn't respond and asks the girl how the cleaning job went. In response, with a silly face, Lena says she already reported it when she stated she was in trouble. For a few seconds, the protagonist processes the girl's report and logically gets quite irritated. So Lee orders his minion to put this trash back in the trash can, and Keezer promptly follows the commands given. Lena tries to resist, claiming it is too cold and she can't move, but the warrior is relentless. With his tremendous insensitivity, he puts the girl back in the trash, now placing a rock on top to hold it. With the exit apparently sealed, the two leave, and the protagonist states that it made him feel much better. However, as they leave, the hero feels that he's becoming more and more like his subordinate. In another area of the city, Lena is back with the group and informs them that she gathered everything valuable in the guild after the boss left. Although keeping the items will cause problems, the girl put them in a subspace bag she found in the manager's office. At this moment, the group heads to the city's entertainment area and the protagonist asks what happened after that. Lena then explains that to camouflage the deed as the responsibility of the Mercenaries Guild, she did some things to the clerk's body. However, to her bad luck, the branch manager arrived at the moment of the act, catching her red-handed. With this, Lee understands that the girl basically failed to get rid of the evidence and was caught as the main suspect, which she confirms with enthusiasm. In this case, a sudden idea comes to the protagonist's mind, understanding that in this situation, the girl is taking the blame for his subordinate's actions. Therefore, he realizes he needs to get rid of her quickly and turns to leave, calling her useless and thanking her for the time they spent together. This makes the girl sad to the point of starting to cry and questioning why her damn boss is so cold, because in the end she was caught as the main suspect while doing his dirty work. Among all things, tears were the hero's weak point and he couldn't resist being so insensitive. Therefore, the protagonist places one of his hands on the girl's head and reluctantly admits that she did a good job surviving this situation, considering she could have run away with the subspace bag but didn't for some mysterious reason. Given this, Lena blushes and explains that she was trying to make it seem like there were accomplices because what she wanted was something like protection or freedom. With this, the hero realizes that the girl's excuses are getting more and more disorganized. However, at least she is there, so Lee tells her to wash up and go to sleep later, which she quickly agrees to. Later, the group arrives at a house in the city that will serve as an inn for now. Without thinking much, Lee places some coins on the table and asks for a room with 2 beds and another with just 1, besides needing a bath in the girl's room. However, the clerk explains that at the moment, they don't have many vacant rooms due to the hour, leaving only 2 rooms with 1 bed each. Regarding the bath that was offered, Lena praised her boss for taking such good care of her, but he said he was doing it because of her smell. In the end, there were only 2 rooms, and since Lena is a girl, she would obviously get one. Moreover, to maintain the loyalty of his extremely important subordinate Kizer, the boy will have to give the other one to him. In the end, there will be no choice for the hero but to sleep somewhere along with his minion. However, at this moment, the protagonist remembers that his subordinate is a psychopath who kills people with a simple handshake. So if he accidentally kills him while sleeping, it will be game over for Lee. In such a case, he understands that he can't stay in the same room as this animal and decides to call Caesar to discuss it. After calling him, Lee asks the warrior to stay in this room and informs him that he will not use one, which leaves the brute confused. While yawning, he questions if his boss wants them to kill the innkeeper, but comments that the noise might disturb the boy's sleep. In response, the hero states that he doesn't want to waste time with that, just wanting to sleep. With this, Kizer says that his boss's behavior, colder than anyone else, is strange, recalling they gave up a room and refused to kill the innkeeper. In this case, the subordinate asks if his boss is worried about the assassin, and Lee pretends not to understand, feeling a bit embarrassed. Then the warrior explains that the girl is a defect who couldn't even handle the job in the criminal guild, that she was offered mercy and even a bath. However, in his opinion, Lee was just making the girl let her guard down so he could kill her while she slept. Nevertheless, the protagonist doesn't understand a single word of what his subordinate is trying to say. But despite this, he denies the minion's hasty conclusion, informing him that he was just going to sleep at another inn instead of this overcrowded one. But before leaving, Lee seriously warns that Lena still has some use, so nothing should happen to her. Finally, the boy leaves, leaving behind only Caesar's sadistic and mysterious expression. Thus, the system informs about the EP, or energy points, that decrease when a person doesn't sleep, and that after the second day of restlessness, HP and MP decrease. However, with just 1 night of lost sleep, nothing happens, and later the next day, the inn where the hero stayed was a luxury hotel in the city. While sleeping, Lee acts somewhat somnambulant, saying things like, "Please don't go, and I am your boss." However, disrupting his morning rest, Kizer suddenly appears in front of the protagonist's bed. Faced with this, Lee wakes up a bit groggy and questions why his subordinate is there now. But after repeatedly being told to wake up, the hero finally sees that his subordinate is in front of him with a blood-soaked sword. Logically, the protagonist panics and asks what happened, wondering if the warrior killed someone in the meantime. In response, Kizer informs him that it has been 7 people, and fortunately, there were no witnesses. After witnessing the minion wipe the blood off his sword onto his sheet, the protagonist remembers what was said the previous night about the girl. With this, Lee becomes deeply irritated, considering the possibility that Lena was killed by the warrior. However, at that moment, something makes a noise at an entrance in the ceiling of the upper part of the building. With the entrance open, Lena reveals herself from inside, cheerfully asking if her boss slept well last night. Lee's confused, so the girl explains that the boss will be important in the future, so she thought he might be assassinated while sleeping alone. Faced with this, the hero observes the two arguing and begins to analyze the synergy they have with each other. In the end, the protagonist starts to believe that this is actually quite cool. However, among the things that were captivating him, something caught his attention negatively. Upon the arrival of his companions, they left a trail of destruction through the hotel, things that Lee will have to cover the costs for at checkout. In this case, the boy regrets ever feeling any camaraderie with people like them, and with a serious look, he calls everyone to leave immediately. Later, back at the Adventurers Guild, one of them comes out of the guild injured, having to be carried by his colleague, who is already getting tired. Another adventurer, also injured, comments that this is 3 times more difficult than the Labyrinth City. She says her reaction speed has increased, but if the monster's actions are unorthodox, it doesn't help at all. The adventurer carrying his friend then recalls, scared, that they had to act as if they were in a raid against a bunch of small monsters. This makes the man angry, and he shouts, frustrated, that the only dungeon for beginners is already incredibly difficult. But at that moment, they bump into a tall warrior. Since it was an unintentional act, the man turns to see the face of the person he bumped into. And by the misfortune of fate, this tall warrior is the killer Caesar, who is not happy at all. Noticing the men's stares, Lee's subordinate angrily asks if they are staring at his boss. Obviously, the adventurers were not staring at the protagonist, but Lena enjoys stirring things up, and she calls her boss, saying the adventurer is looking at his body, ordering the killer to cut him into pieces. Fearing for his life, the novice runs away in such desperation that he doesn't think twice before leaving his injured friend on the ground. And with this, Kizer's evil reputation increases by 1 point, satisfying the girl with a good laugh. Faced with this, Lee orders the two to stop because they cannot waste time on this important day, as it is the day they will choose the path they will follow. The subordinates understand without problems, but the girl asks what they will do, and Lee says they will go to the labyrinth for now. However, they will start with novice missions, which leaves Caesar and Lena confused, not understanding why they have to bother with that. Then the hero states that they need to register that they completed the missions so that the subordinates don't have to kill people to demonstrate power. Thus, they will make it clear that anyone who messes with them will die, which is understood as proof or a kind of metal. After the explanation, the girl still doesn't quite understand, so Teaser explains that what follows is the act of breaking the spirit of those who think these missions are difficult. Hoyun thinks that it was worth training the two upon seeing them getting along, and considering that Keezer has 20 power alone, while Lena has an infinite item inventory with her pouch, he believes that killing hundreds of beginner-level monsters should be easy, which would help them gain tons of experience. The quest that they're taking is a goblin subjugation that rewards them with a small amount of money per goblin nose they bring back. Seeing the description of the quest, Horion is happy to see that he wouldn't need to do a thing since they share experience as a party. He then begins feeling proud of himself for thinking up such a plan with an evil smile on his face. After accepting the quest, he signals for their deployment while looking like devils. The place that they are in is the Labyrinth City, which is located in the Labyrinth world. In the middle of this city, there is a sturdy outer and inner wall. This wall contains the entrance to the labyrinth. Its purpose is to defend against the monsters that try to exit the labyrinth, and the whole city itself is developed to block its doorway. And so the party ventures into the shallow area of the labyrinth, where the low-level monsters reside. The party encounters human corpses lying around. Keezer states that the idiotic adventurers were killed by something. He becomes excited and wonders if it was powerful monsters from the depths of the labyrinth, which makes Hoyan nervous. So he debunks his predictions, saying that if there were such powerful monsters, then the guild would have stopped the beginners from entering. Keezer is then disappointed since he wanted to show his true power. Suddenly, Lena shouts when she spots two corpse-stealing goblins in the distance. So the goblins take a stance with their bloody weapons fresh from attacking an adventurer. Hoyan realizes that it's their first real battle and orders his underlings to take care of them, making Lena excited while holding a pair of throwing knives. Keezer unsheathes his sword while taunting the goblins, but then Lena immediately throws the knives into the goblins, immediately killing both of them and asking why Keezer was taking so long to kill such weaklings. He furiously tells her not to steal his prey again, but she replies, saying that it was boring to wait for his long attack, which makes him even more furious. Then he draws his sword again while threatening to silence her, but she continues to instigate him by saying that she's faster than him anyway. Hoyan panics upon seeing them fight verbally and becomes afraid that it might continue physically. Suddenly, a horde of goblins appears after hearing them fight, looking all bloodthirsty and ready to kill all of them. But Keezer and Lena still continue fighting each other while paying no mind to their surroundings. Hoyan becomes nervous, not knowing what to do as they become surrounded by goblins. He remembers the people saying that this was much more difficult than the previous game, leaving him terrified. Even with all the goblins around, the two still fought brazenly, causing Hoyan to panic even more since there was no time for infighting. But while the two idiots are about to attack, Lena dodges Keezer's attack, which then hits the goblins trying to attack them instead. In retaliation, she brings out her throwing knives, then launches them towards him, but he manages to dodge as well. So the knives accidentally hit 3 of the surrounding goblins instead. And so, while they continue to fight, the attacking goblins are being killed accidentally as a result of their ensuing attacks. The cowardly Hoyan observes their fight while hiding behind a rock, and is surprised by the wave of XP being given, leaving him with no choice but to compliment their stupidity since they are getting the job done anyway. Hoyan states that the difference between him and other gamers is that he can utilize the powers of his henchmen to easily breeze through the ranks. After defeating the goblins, he praises Lena, causing her to feel excited, then proceeds to rub it into Caesar's face that only she got complimented, making Keezer furious again. But Hoyan diffuses the situation by saying that she only did well to some degree and tells her to cooperate more instead of fighting in the future. She agrees, saying that she'll let Keezer handle the small fries in the future so he wouldn't feel left out, which triggers another angry response from him. Hoyan stops them from bickering again and states that they will waste energy from fighting all the time. He continues saying that if they keep on antagonizing each other, then they wouldn't be able to handle the deeper parts of the labyrinth, adding that he can't just hunt by himself. Lena then asks if he will hunt as well. He says yes and tells her that he will take the initiative, causing her to look at him with awe. Hoyan realizes what he just said and regrets immediately. Keezer joins in and asks him if he will really take the initiative. Luckily, his nervous face doesn't show thanks to his low sync rate, with his character and replies saying that he will. Though Keezer is worried about something, he refrains from saying anything more and just follows his orders quietly. Lena is now excited upon seeing her boss fight for the first time. She believes that he is super strong, going as far as saying that he might be a retired master, which makes Hoyan even more nervous. Afterwards, she spots a frail-looking goblin in the distance. It is an elder goblin, which looks weak and very old. Keezer sends him off with a tear on his face, and Lena cheers for him while Hoyan is hesitantly walking towards the goblin. He then engages in an awkward standoff with the elder goblin. Since he worries about Lena's absurd expectations, he grips his sword tightly from nervousness, but he quickly dispels it and prepares to fight, thinking that he just needs to focus on his form. Hoyan launches a powerful attack with his sword without worry since he is somewhat confident in his sword skills. But the elder goblin saw through his attack and quickly sidestepped with his cane, which he then used to attack Hoyan straight in the head. This shocked him since he didn't expect such an old-looking goblin to have this much speed. So he launches another attack, but the elder goblin easily evades it by jumping. Though Hoyan predicted that he would try to dodge, so he used a skill that hits the elder goblin mid-air. He becomes exhausted upon launching multiple attacks consecutively. Then he looks back to see if he managed to kill the elder goblin while gasping for air. But the goblin manages to land successfully, seemingly unaffected by his attack. The elder goblin looks back at him, then runs away in fear while Hoyan tries to stop him. Desperate not to ruin his image, he finds a way to stop the fleeing goblin, so he prepares his blade and throws it at the goblin, making it look back at him. But the sword didn't reach far and landed a few meters away from him instead. Embarrassed by his display of flimsy strength, he tries not to look back at his underlings, while the elder goblin manages to completely flee from him. Hoyan then pathetically walks toward his sword to pick it up and returns to his party feeling absolutely embarrassed and defeated. While worrying that he disappointed them, Kizer speaks up honestly, saying that he fought well beyond his expectations and adding that he went overboard with his body. Lena then asks Kizer why Hoyan's performance was beyond his expectations, and also asks how bad the boss was before if it really surpassed his expectations, which hurts his pride a little. Hoyan then tells him to ignore what just happened, as he faces away from them, prompting Lena to mistakenly ask if he was sick all this time. But the two didn't answer, which affirms her question. This completely surprises her, so she asks if it was really true. After a while, they set up a campfire inside the labyrinth and sit quietly around the fire as no one dared to speak after what just happened. But Alina feels the awkwardness of the situation, so her eyes wander around trying to find a time to speak. And so she bravely asks them if she can just go to sleep and leave all of the guarding to the men, using her age as an excuse. Kizer becomes irritated because of her impudence and asks her if she dares to tell the sick boss to stay up all night. Lena gets mad because he keeps calling her a wench and asks how old he is while Hoyan tells them not to worry about him as he thinks about how they mistakenly think he's sick. He also mentions that Kizer is 15 years old, so she should keep watch since she's older, which surprises her. She replies saying that she doesn't want to and doubts what Hoyan just said due to Caesar's appearance, looking like a 30-year-old middle-aged man. Kizer angrily responds, saying that he doesn't care about the age of people weaker than him, causing Lena to instigate him further by saying that he only has brute strength. Hoyan gets fed up with all the bickering and tells them to stop wasting their energy since they are in such a bad situation right now. He then asks Lena whose fault it was that they have to sleep in the open due to her not knowing how to navigate back to the entrance, adding that the assassins are top-tier bandits, so they should have the skills of bandits, so he asks why she doesn't know navigation skills, causing Lena to look absolutely dumbfounded. She tells Hoyan that what he said was all correct, but she still doesn't know such a skill while she shows a dumb expression on her face. He asks further by asking why she didn't learn them, but she simply replies asking why should an assassin learn such tacky bandit skills. So he asks again what skills she has learned, though she replies that she only knows hiding, infiltrating, and assassination skills. Flabbergasted by her absurd stupidity, he asks if she even knows the basic skills like lockpicking and bewitchment, to which she replies saying that she has no clue. Kizer also gets pissed after hearing her, so he tells his boss that he's better than her since he was the one securing a way out. But Hoyan remembers what happened earlier when he destroyed everything, causing the paths to get blocked and them almost getting reported. Lena mocks him by saying that he couldn't even find the exit either, which triggers him to call her offensive names, but she simply tells him to call her older sister. Hoyan senses another fight brewing, so he stops the two and tells them that he packed 2 days worth of food in case of something like this happening, so it's no big deal. The two fall silent after hearing what he just said, but Lena breaks the silence by praising the boss, but she asks why he didn't pack a map as well, which causes Hoyan to fall silent, since he totally has no excuse either. And so after they eat, the two idiots fall asleep, which left the boss no choice but to stand guard as they snored in the background. He's disappointed by them leaving him to watch since he's still the boss even if he's this incompetent. Hoyan recalls that he also didn't get enough sleep yesterday thanks to his impudent underlings, so they need to get out quickly in order not to lose skill levels. He notices something as he looks back at his underlings. Lena suddenly disappeared, leaving him to wonder where she went. He remembers her asking if she could just sleep all night earlier, causing him to think she hid because it's her turn to guard. But Lena suddenly appears at his side, asking him if he's sleepy as he shouts in surprise. She is impressed by his dedication to stay up all night to let his underlings sleep, so she praises him, causing her to tenderly tell him something as if she was confessing. She tells him that she was feeling bad since she caused him to cry earlier after fighting the Elder Goblin. Hoyan replies, saying that it was no big deal, but she insists and says that she'll teach him a skill in return since she feels bad. Hoyan's face lights up as he realizes that it's a skill transfer event. If he accepts the skill transfer, then he will acquire one of Lena's skills at level 0, and if he raises its level to 1, then the skill transfer would be completed. But if the skill is not specially taught by the initiator, then its growth potential would be decreased, and if he doesn't learn it on his own, then he won't be able to surpass the limit. Hoyan becomes excited since skill transfers do not usually happen unless he has high likability or loyalty, and that is also rare because NPCs normally won't give skills even if you offered a whole bag of gold, so he becomes impressed by his own luck. He asks Lena what skill she's going to teach him, and she replies by asking what the most important skill is for assassins. Hoi-an answers by saying that it's assassination, which Lena affirms and tells him that she will teach him her special assassination skill. And so he began learning her skill. Lena tells him that the trick to assassination is to quickly catch the target off guard and become familiar with their vital points so they die quickly when he stabs them. Hoi-an is surprised by her speed, but Lena shuts her mouth and tells him that it's important for him to be fast and accurate so that the target has no time to react. His face stiffens due to her suddenly attacking him, but she pays it no mind and proceeds to teach him the basics. She begins her demonstration and readies her sword as Hoi-an carefully observes her actions. In lightning speed, she stabs the wall, causing huge gusts of wind to appear. Lena shows him the result, which is a small smoking hole in the wall, and tells him to do the same thing 1,000 times in order to learn the skill. Hoi-an stands still as he processes what just happened. He tells her that the durability of his sword will be used up while he secretly thinks that he has no clue what just happened since it all happened so fast. Lena explains that he doesn't need to hit the wall as hard as he can as she readies his blade to strike the wall. She tells him that it's a precise technique, so he needs to keep an accurate posture and appropriate distance to ensure that the durability of his sword doesn't wear out quickly. Most importantly, he should be making the stabbing movement while barely touching the wall. Even after she explained all the important details of the skill, Hoi-an is still worried about something. He asks her what would happen if he stabs the wall too hard by accident. Lena responds by jokingly telling him that the victim's vital point would burst, leaving a fountain of blood which will have him caught in the act. Hoi-an is irritated by her stupid expression and nearly pops a vein. And so he finally gets what she meant and plans to stab the air in order to leave only a small hole in the wall. He begins to strike the wall confidently as instructed by Lena, and continues doing so until he reaches the limit. After stabbing at the wall for some time, the skill transfer finally ends, which is just in time because Hoi-an is now extremely tired from doing such a strenuous task for a long time. Lena notices that the transfer has ended and goes to take a look at the status, but he only managed to receive 3% proficiency, so he failed to acquire the skill, causing Lena to pat him on the back saying that he has no talent for assassination. Hoi-an is in tears again due to another embarrassing feat he made, thinking that he has lost a lot ever since he came into the labyrinth. Suddenly, Kizer calls out to him, who seems to have recently woken up from a deep slumber. He asks him what he wants and tells him that if he found his performance unseemly, then he should just go back to sleep. But Kizer simply tells him that other adventurers have appeared in the labyrinth. The two adventurers suddenly notice them looking over, but to them, they seem like frightening villains due to their eyes. Hoi-an tries to stop them as they run away in complete fear. He just wanted to ask them the way back, so he was shocked why they decided to run. But he finds out immediately why they ran, since they called them gangsters that destroyed the paths earlier. And so an unexpected event came. It is to catch the labyrinth adventurers. If they are unable to catch the adventurers in 30 minutes, then there will be no guarantee when the next adventurer will come. And if they manage to catch them, then they can ask where the exit is and guide them to it. But whether they agree to do so is up to their abilities to negotiate with them. Hoi-an immediately orders Kizer to catch them, to which he complies quickly. He adds that this was the only way that they could find the exit, so he shouldn't lose them no matter what. Kizer gets ready to start running and quickly launches his feet off the ground, gaining absurd amounts of speed in just a couple of moments, leaving the other two in the dust. Lena is impressed by how he used his leg strength to kick the ground in order to gain momentum, and asks her boss if he is worried, which causes him to wonder why he should be. So he asks why he should be worried about Kizer, but she corrects him by saying that she's worried about the two of them, which causes him even more confusion. She explains saying that Kizer is directionally challenged, and so there's no way he kept track of where they are while running. Finally, Hoi-an realizes what she was worried about and decides to chase after Kizer right away in order not to get lost. He quickly orders Lena to chase after them, since if they lose them, then they will be given another event where they need to find Caesar. So they both take off immediately in order to catch them. But after 3 minutes sprinting at full force, Hoi-an is out of breath while Lena is completely fine. Lena is worried about her boss being so out of breath, so she asks if he has a sickness that will make his heart explode if he strains himself, to which he completely denies. He assures her that he won't die, clearing her doubts. Lena tells him that there is nothing they can do anymore but pray that Kizer brings back the adventurers since they both failed to catch them. Suddenly, a text box appears stating that Kizer managed to catch the party of adventurers. Hoi-an is relieved and adds that Kizer is a perfect fit for physical work, so he doesn't even need to worry. But Lena tells him that if they can't find that guy, then they're in trouble. Hoi-an replies by saying that the adventurers that he caught must have a good sense of direction so they can lead him back, to which Lena agrees. He wonders why she looks way too happy for such a small thing. Then he asks her what she wants to do when they manage to leave, so Lena asks why he was asking. He says that he's thankful for her willingness to teach him skills, so he wants to pay her back in kind, no matter how small it may be. Lena is shocked upon hearing his kind words and praises him for being the best boss she has had. She then immediately tells him what she wants. which is to eat yummy food. Hoi-an is surprised by what she wants, realizing that she only wants good food despite being a high-level assassin from the criminal guild. He happily agrees while thinking that she must have had a pretty rough life. But the true reason for his happiness is how cheap her request is. Unaware of her boss taking advantage of her, Lena excitedly waits for Caesar and asks him if he wants to do something in the meantime. But suddenly, a text box appears in front of Hoi-an. It states that Caesar has killed one adventurer that he caught, which makes him break out in a cold sweat. He gets mad at his recklessness while Lena seems to have noticed something. She points it out, saying that there is a group of adventurers that suddenly appeared in the distance. The adventurers' party consists of 3 members with only 1 female, who has seemed to notice their presence. But Hoi-an looks like a mad dog in their eyes, while Lena looks like an innocent girl. Seeing the scene in front of them, the adventurers ready their daggers, bows, and shields. They tell Lena to come to them, mistakenly thinking that Hoi-an is an evil kidnapper, which has warranted his confusion since he didn't do anything yet. The tanky-looking man calls him a horrible bastard for taking a young lady hostage. Hoi-an is flabbergasted by his proclamation and wonders what is wrong with their heads. He is at a loss since he has no time to deal with the adventurers, adding the fact that he currently has a sleep deprivation debuff. If this continues, then Caesar will kill everyone without hesitation, which will have them targeted by the guild. Running out of options, he decides to ask Lena for help. But she just laughs at the current situation, and plays along with the adventurer's misconception with her acting like a maiden being held hostage. An arrow suddenly flies next to Hoi-an's head, making him scared out of his wits, while Lena simply stands there with a stupid expression. The female archer in the party orders him to release the girl after shooting at him with an arrow. While the adventurers charge at him, Lena refuses to clear up the confusion as Hoi-an shakes her up, and so the assassin in the party throws a bunch of knives while the two are arguing. But Lena simply pushes Hoi-an away in order to dodge the flying knives. The tank mistakenly thinks that he simply dodged the knives, so they become even more cautious and alert, while the assassin tells Jason the tank that he feels that they can't win no matter how hard they fight him, since they had no luck even before entering the labyrinth. But he remembers their promise that they would stay together in death, so he becomes even more motivated to fight Hoi-an. After hearing his words, Jason hesitates to say something, but he gathers up his courage and proceeds to tell Carly the archer that he has liked her ever since they met, which makes Carly blush while telling him that he should continue once they survive. Hoi-an sees the scene in front of his eyes and is shocked by how corny it is, while Lena supports the romance in the background. After being entertained, she quickly asks her boss if she should kill them, but Hoi-an feels guilty, so he doesn't utter a word. He is at a loss again due to not knowing what to do. But suddenly a text box appears again. It states that Caesar has killed another adventurer, which fills his face with despair as he gains a small amount of experience. However, thanks to the XP gained from killing the adventurers, he levels up and unlocks the class skill named Boss Spirit. His face immediately lights up with an evil smile after realizing what just happened. Boss Spirit is a normal skill that he simply got at first glance. However, the skill allows him to elicit respect from his underlings and fear from his enemies. After activating this skill, Lena is impressed by his current state, going as far as praising his face for looking like a crazed murderer. Hoi-an is confused by her words and wonders what his face looks like as the adventurers charge at him. He decides to look in the mirror later and focus on the current predicament at hand. Then he attempts to activate his charisma using Boss Spirit, and orders the party of adventurers to freeze with fear. Thinking that it would work, he simply waited for them to stop. But he notices something strange. It's that they didn't stop at all, much to his surprise. Lena immediately goes to defend the boss, wondering why he's just standing still. But Jason still charges through, aiming for Hoi-an's neck. He becomes scared at the impending danger coming towards him, as Jason's sword swiftly strikes toward him, nearly reaching his neck while he sweats moments away from decapitation. But the sword stops, reflecting his ugly face in the shiny metal. He wonders why the sword has suddenly stopped, as the adventurers freeze in fear, making him think that his skill may have worked. But in reality, Caesar was the cause of their fear. He asks whether the sword Jason is holding is a toy sword, making the party step back and assume a defensive stance. Jason shouts at the top of his lungs, saying that they will never back down, though Caesar simply breaks off his sword to assert his dominance. After all the ruckus, the crazy murderous underling stood still looking unfazed, while Lena smells his clothes. She states that his clothes reek of blood, which takes Hoi-an aback. Lena assures him that it wasn't his own blood, while Caesar tells her to get her hands off his body. He explains to the boss that the adventurers he chased were adventurers that would steal and kill other adventurers, so he simply killed them and stole their weapons without remorse. Hoi-an is shocked upon hearing his words and asks him why those adventurers were running despite being killers themselves. Caesar responds by saying that it was due to the boss's face looking like he kills 50 people a day. He becomes even more shocked after hearing his statement. In denial, he asks the party of adventurers a question, the question being what comes to their mind when they look at his face while he unknowingly looks like a seasoned murderer. Jason answers, saying that he thinks he is screwed when he looks at his face. Caesar breaks out in rage and attempts to attack the adventurers due to his brutally honest answer. He gets mad over them not having enough sincerity when they look at his boss's scary face. As he tries to kill everyone, Hoyan stops him immediately. He looks over at the bloody weapons Keezer stole and orders the adventurers to wipe the blood off them as an attempt to appease Keezer's anger. Lena didn't let this chance go and laugh at the boss for acknowledging his own ugliness, much to his frustration. He is now shocked by a sudden reality check. And so they start heading towards the exit as Lena leaps in joy. They have arrived in the labyrinth's shallow area near the gate. Lena praises her boss for ordering the adventurers to clean the blood off the weapons, which allowed her to fill her subspace pouch. Hoyan explains that it was imperative to clean the weapons since they're stolen in order to increase their selling value. He then thanks one of the adventurers named Holan for guiding them out of the labyrinth. Holan welcomes the praise in kind, but he states that there might be a problem. Hoyan asks what it is, so he replies, saying that the guards at the gate are thieves, so they will take 10% of their profits after inspection. The boss is surprised since this didn't happen in the previous game, so he asks again what he needs to do in order not to be robbed. Though Keezer simply answers by saying that they should kill them, but he cuts him off mid-sentence. Lena answers saying that they should use her beauty, which Hoyan immediately rejects and orders Holan to take the lead. Keezer made sure to threaten to kill him if he fails, which puts a lot of pressure on Holan. Finally, they have arrived at the exit door. The guard asks them if they are returning after exploring the labyrinth. Holan affirms and asks them if they can skip the inspection since they have to quickly report to the guild about an adventurer killer. The guards think for a bit, but eventually agree to let them go and ask them to report it to the guard afterwards. Hoyan looks over at the guards as they pass and seems to be thinking about something. They have finally left the labyrinth. Keezer immediately asks why Holden was making a big fuss about the guards earlier after seeing that they passed so easily. He then suspects him of stealing the credit for taking out the adventurer killer, which made Holden shake in his boots. Hoyan calms him down and says that they can just sell them off as slaves, to which he agrees. The adventurer party is now scolding Holden for trying to scam them due to the fear of being sold off. Keezer has now learned the skill Fear Induce as his eyes light up in excitement. And so the boss and his crazy underling laugh as the adventurers are filled with despair. The system shows that Caesar's notoriety went up by 5, while Hoyan went up by 15. After making fun of the adventurers, Lena waved them goodbye as the other two continued laughing. They have now completed the Goblin quest, acquiring 1 silver and 5 copper as a reward. And due to the recognition of killing the adventurer killers, they have also been awarded 10 gold coins. As they head to the guild, Hoyan grins in excitement. Their reputation in the guild has now increased. When they arrive at the counter, the clerk praises their achievement in killing the adventurer killers, and adds that the entrance guards are thieves, so they are robbed of 10% of their earnings after they get inspected. Hoyan tells her that it was no problem, but the clerk simply cuts him off and says that the guild will also collect 10% of their acquired loot, which leaves them silent while Lena calls them thieves. Hoyan tries to protest, so the clerk offers them a solution. She asks them if they would like to name her as the payer for their rewards in order to prevent the guild from taking 10% of their earnings. While looking extremely calm, she introduces herself as Errol and states that fellow adventurers should help each other out. Afterwards, night came somewhere in an unknown place. The place echoed with the sounds of thunder due to lightning striking every so often. This place is an ominous-looking church. Inside the church, there seems to be someone reciting an evil doctrine. The man seems to be somewhat deranged and dressed in a priest outfit while proclaiming about someone ruling over all of life. As he recites his deranged doctrines, a small explosion suddenly interrupts. He looks over to what made the sound and sees Keezer ominously standing atop the rubble. Then an awkward silence fills the room. Keezer breaks the silence by asking if the man is a priest. The man affirms his question and asks what he can do for him. Silence fills the room again, before Keezer suddenly screams and says that his boss is seriously ill. A few hours earlier, inside the Brahm Luxury Hotel, Hoyan tells his underlings that they will be staying over at a luxury hotel today. The two underlings are both thankful, and Lena expresses it by claiming that the boss is the best. And she adds that last time the boss left them to stay over alone at this luxury hotel, so she asks him why he isn't as stingy anymore. Hoyan smiles wryly, thinking that he won't need to be stingy in the future, since he struck a deal with the clerk which prevents the guild from taking a cut from his money. He becomes cocky, thinking that the nomination system he used with the clerk was only possible due to his charisma, which makes Lena comment on his unsightly face. Eventually, he lays off his thoughts while Lena and Keezer start to argue about his ugly face. Hoyan proclaims that today they will celebrate as a reward for the hard work they did in the labyrinth. However, he has a condition for them in order for them to have their celebration. He mysteriously reveals the condition, saying that they shouldn't cause any trouble from now until they leave the hotel. Due to what he said, the two of his underlings look at each other, which sparks an argument on who the boss was referring to. A hotel attendant tries to stop them, which makes Hoyan embarrassed of his two underlings. After the argument, they head towards the hotel's luxurious restaurant. Then they share a toast as a party. At the dinner table, both his underlings are dressed in formal attire. Lena tastes the liquid in her cup and revels in the taste. She wonders if that's how an adult's toast feels like, which sparks a question from Hoyan asking if this was her first time. The boss starts to drink from his cup, thinking that it has been a while since he drank in-game. He enjoys his delicious beer while Keezer stares at him. His stare continues until Hoyeon asks them how much they can drink. Both of his underlings remind him that they are underage, so they will be in trouble if they drink. Hoyeon is once again shocked about how their ages don't match their looks at all. He changes the topic and states that it will be hard to explore the labyrinth next time since everyone doesn't know how to navigate, so he thought of a plan. And so he asks Lena if she wants to learn some navigation skills, to which she swiftly declines, saying that it isn't cool to learn such things. However, he expected her answer, so he simply tells them that he'll look for a bandit to join them or buy a map instead for navigation. He looks at his half-full cup and chugs it immediately at the depressing thought of his underlings not listening to him no matter how well he treats them. After he begins shoving down his beer, Keezer seems to be triggered by something and slams the table, shouting at the boss, saying that his limit was only one sip of beer. Hoyeon is confused by the situation and simply stares at him. Keezer continues by asking why he forced himself to hang out with him since he mistakenly thinks that he's getting sicker every day, which makes him even more confused since he is completely healthy. He looks over at Lena, hoping that she would try to explain, but she completely believed Keezer's words and began to tear up. She then asks the deranged underling to do something about it, to which he affirms by saying that he will bring a priest immediately. So he changes his clothes and sprints out of the hotel, immediately leaving the other guests surprised. Lena then carries Hoyeon, who is unable to stop his own underling. And now, after visiting the priest, Keezer returns with him to the hotel. He introduces himself as a member of a clan named Priests of the End, naming himself Luvik. The two are speechless upon his arrival, but Hoyeon breaks the silence by greeting him while confused about him being a priest of the End. His confusion lies in the fact that priests were rare in the previous game and that they stayed well hidden, and also his religion that sounds strange. He has never heard of such a religion, so he wonders if it was created recently. And so he asks what the priest's doctrine is, to which he simply responds, saying that his doctrine is the fall of the world. The two are now even more surprised after hearing such a deranged doctrine. Hoyeon becomes nervous now that he realizes that his religion is evil, while lightning strikes ominously in the distance, and so he asks if his religion will be able to cure his illness. Luvik affirms his question and states that if he kills a part of his body, then the disease on that part will die. He adds that the end cannot be avoided and diseases are not an exception. Hoyeon is dumbfounded by the utterly maniacal response he got, and tells him that his way of curing would be a problem, while thinking that the priest is basically going to kill him. The priest asks him if it is okay not to kill his disease since he heard that he was almost dying due to alcohol, to which Hoyeon denies, saying that it's only a misunderstanding. He apologizes to the priest, saying that his underling must have caused a big fuss and sympathizes with him for coming at such a late hour. So he decides to give him travel expenses since he feels bad for just sending him away, which surprises the priest. He then gives a bag of money to the priest, shaking hands. The priest stares at the huge sum lying in his hands. Hoyeon notices that he looks somewhat agitated and offers him more money. But the priest was just extremely happy and stated that it was the first time he was rewarded for raising the notoriety of the church. He expresses his thanks and adds that he can't just leave after receiving such kindness. And so he starts to recite his crazy doctrine, which elicits a nervous response from Hoyeon, as he worries about what the deranged priest is about to do. Luvik proclaims that he will now start the end-of-life ritual with a crazy expression. He starts going through his holy book, and starts an incantation to cast some sort of spell. Hoyeon sees the crazy priest about to do something, and is now at a loss for words. He finishes chanting and activates the spell. At this exact moment, lightning strikes down from the skies while Hoyeon is scared for his life. He closes his eyes expecting the worst, but when he opens them again, he is completely fine and unaffected by the spell, which filled the room with silence. Hoyeon checks his body to ensure nothing happened and seems surprised that he is safe. Keezer bursts in anger, scolding the priest for using such a spell on his boss. But the priest is unfazed and simply instructs them to look outside the window. So the three look outside the window and see a man lying on the floor, seemingly hit by the lightning earlier. They look back at the priest, trying to ask a question of whether the man struck outside by lightning is really dead. The priest tells them to move outside as he gets ready to go out with dark tentacles at his side. He flies out the window using his dark tentacles and falls from a high place coming from the window, but he lands completely fine with his holy book in hand. Luvik approaches the man lying on the floor as bystanders panic upon seeing the situation. He goes to check his pulse while smoke continues to emanate from his body. The priest proclaims with a strange smile that the man is dead, which alarmed the citizens nearby. Hoyeon looks over at the crazy priest as he breaks out in a cold sweat, thinking that he's crazy for announcing such a thing when bystanders are nearby. Keezer then approaches him and asks if he could step aside for a moment, as he flew outside the window with his sword in hand, which shocked Hoyeon. He jumped outside with such a strong force that it left the room covered in dust. Keezer lands behind the priest as if he was trying to confront him. He scolds the priest for being loud and adds that what he did earlier was not healing. Luvik suddenly looks over, sensing an immense wave of bloodlust. Caesar interrogates him with his sword pointed at his head and asks what the effects are of the ritual he just performed. He replies, saying that it's a spell that decreases a person's vitality until the disease dies. The crazy underling tells him that what he did garnered a lot of attention, which put his boss in a tight spot, and adds that even if the ritual was directed at the boss, then the powerful disease wouldn't have died out anyway. Hoyan thinks that he would have died instead of getting healed if he was hit by that. And so Luvic finally replies and asks if he's threatening the clan by pointing his sword towards him. Caesar mocks what he just said and tells him that he just means to cut him up while looking like a homicidal maniac. Hoyan looks over at them from the hotel room and wonders why they were fighting all of a sudden. The priest replies, feeling offended for threatening him who came to this place for a holy mission. Though Caesar simply ignores him and goes for the kill, but the priest dodges swiftly and places himself at his back. Caesar strikes towards his back in an attempt to hit him, and yet the priest easily stops his attack using holy power. He explains that it is a power that absorbs damage and is equal to the divine power granted by God. Lena and Hoyan watch the fight unfold while eating popcorn, thinking that it was unbelievable that he managed to block Caesar's sword. The crazy underling looks worried seeing that his sword got blocked, but even so, he still continues to engage in a fight with the priest. Caesar strikes again with his sword, but Luvic simply blocks it again. Seeing that normal attacks aren't working, he jumps while readying his sword for a swing. The priest anticipates his attack and dodges in advance. Caesar then strikes down with full force, hitting the ground in the process, triggering a small explosion. Dust comes out of the explosion, which lowers the visibility a bit, and once the dust has settled, he notices something. It's that he didn't manage to strike anything but the ground. At this moment, several tentacles attempt to attack Caesar from the back. By the time he notices them, it is already impossible to dodge, and so he takes a hit in the back, causing him to groan in pain. He looks behind him and sees the priest with 4 tentacles surrounding him. Luvic then casts a spell called High-Level Shadow Spears at Caesar, which flies at a high speed to attack him. But he notices the attack, and uses his cape to make a strong wind, blocking the spears. Lena watches the fight with 3D glasses now, while Hoyan is impressed by Caesar's quick thinking and skills. The crazy underling charges once again to attack the priest. He gets ready to attack while feeling confident, as Luvic prepares to defend against his attack. Caesar shouts out in joy right before attacking, but once he attacks, is immediately blocked by the priest. Yet he is still unfazed and continues to force his attack through Luvic's defenses. During his attack, the priest's confidence seems to falter a bit, causing Hoyan and Lena to think that his power must have grown weaker. But he suddenly notices something. A shadow spear is hidden behind the priest's back. The reason the priest weakened his power is that he intends to aim for Caesar's vital spot. Through a shadow spear, he can launch an attack from behind, avoiding his own vital points but hitting the opponents, then recovering the healing ritual. Hoyan becomes troubled since he's screwed if Caesar dies, while Lena simply takes the situation lightly. The priest makes an evil smile on his face as he thinks of executing his plan. Running out of time, Hoyan remembers a blunder he made. It's that he didn't build up Caesar's spell resistance because there weren't usually spellcasters to fight early on in the game. Though in the first place, it is strange to fight an evil priest. Seeing that the two are still fighting so eagerly, he senses that he might execute his plan anytime, so he tries to think of a way to protect Caesar. Even if he orders Lena to join in, it wouldn't have an effect on the priest due to his holy power move. And on top of that, they are now running out of time since the shadow spears are now aimed at the vital points. He thinks hard about what he should do to prevent an evil priest from using his spells. Running out of time, he thinks of a desperate solution. He shouts at the top of his lungs, saying that the guards have arrived, which distracts Luvic for a moment, right before his shadow spear pierces through his own flesh. Looking at the fight, it seems that Caesar was struck with a shadow spear, but it barely missed him, thanks to Hoyan's distraction. Luvic is speechless, not knowing what to do, which Caesar immediately takes advantage of. He goes to strike the priest with his hand, striking straight to Luvic's torso. He then lifts him up in the air, right before slamming him down into the ground, destroying the concrete floor due to his immense strength, which made Luvic immediately pass out after hitting the ground. His attack's damage didn't end there, since he struck the ground so hard it sent shockwaves all over the place, destroying a large portion of the city's floor. Caesar stood still after causing an enormous amount of damage, and proclaimed that he managed to defend the boss from the impudent priest. But seeing the actual scene was bound to cause major misunderstandings. The bystanders saw the damage caused by Caesar, making them freeze in fear. Hoyan realizes that the situation might go south any time, and his suspicions are immediately confirmed by the sounds of the guards arriving. The guards point towards Caesar's location, signaling to arrest him for damaging public property and physical assault. Upon seeing the scene, they mistakenly assume that he assaulted an innocent priest. Afterwards, the bystanders report to the guards, saying that the rest of Caesar's group is in the hotel building, thanks to his loud proclamation earlier. They accuse Hoyan of being the orchestrator of the whole attack, which causes a huge ruckus. He looks over to Lena for help, but she simply says that she can't run away with such a big guy like Caesar, leaving Hoyan clueless on what to do. So he tries to run in an attempt to avoid the guards, but ends up getting caught and interrogated anyway. Hoyun and the gang are now inside the police station after getting caught. The police question him on how he's ordering Kizer around, despite not being involved in criminal organizations or having any criminal records. They even praise his record for being absolutely clean. And so they go back to the main issue at hand, saying that they understand that they got attacked by the clan named Priests of the End. However, the detective questions him about the electrocuted corpse. He adds that if the citizen that died was the result of being dragged into their fight, then he would be charged. Hoyun takes a deep breath in order to appease his nervousness, and begins to tell detectives that he has a sickness he's suffering from, which was the reason his underling Kizer brought the priest without knowing that he had a messed up religion. He adds that he was trying to send him back, but he did as he pleased and hit the citizen with lightning. The detective listens to his story with a doubtful gaze, and so he states that there is testimony saying that he was the one who ordered the electrocuted man to be killed. He continues by accusing him of trying to recruit the priest, but ended up fighting when they had a disagreement. Hoyun is at a loss for words since what the detective said also made sense and was very hard to disprove. It is clear that the police saw them as dangerous individuals, which makes it harder for them to prove their innocence. While stuck in a cell, Lena asks her boss what would happen to their planned demon army if they get locked up. Ignoring her nonsense, Hoyun believes that they won't be able to escape this predicament unless someone steps up to testify for them. He starts to lose hope since no one he knows could possibly testify. The detective sees this and becomes excited upon seeing him lose his willpower, and so he attacks by bringing a decisive witness to prove his crimes. He then tells the witness to come in, who is none other than Miss Errol from the guild, who seems ecstatic upon seeing the boss. Hoyun is surprised to see her testifying, but despite his shock, she greets him warmly as if nothing happened. The detective is shocked upon hearing that they know each other, as Errol smiles sharply, looking like she has a plan in mind. She then apologizes to the detective, saying that she has misunderstood something. Much to Hoyun's shock, the detective shouts, telling her that she said that she heard the words of the priest, to which Errol denies and states that it was only a misunderstanding. She adds that Hoyun is a recognized righteous man who caught an unlawful adventurer killer in the labyrinth. Assuring her story is real, she states that she was the one who wrote the report herself. And so she asks the detective why he would think that such a righteous man collaborated with a priest of the end, which leaves him shaken up. She attacks again by saying that he must have been trying to frame Hoyun in order to improve his performance record. After her barrage of attacks, the detective and the boss are left silent, not knowing how to respond to her words. The detective tries to collect himself after being harshly exposed, while Hoyun is all smiles after seeing Errol testifying for him. And so the investigation ends right before sundown. The party members have now been proven innocent, which releases them from confinement, and as an apology, the guards paid the fine for the damage to the public facilities. Hoyun laughs as he revels in their success alongside Errol, also because of the extra 50 gold they received as medical expenses for Hoyun's fake illness. Errol congratulates them, adding that it was her first time seeing something like this happen while working at the guild, but she was glad she was able to be of help. Hoyun thanks her and tells her that he's in her debt, which elicits an ominous response from her, saying that you will become an exclusive member from now on. But she waves goodbye right before they have a chance to respond, which causes Lena to comment about her weirdness. And so with all the incidents cleared up, Hoyun is now sleepy, muttering that he's tired, which triggers a reaction from Kizer. He then becomes worried again, and tells his boss that it's time to get serious treatment for his illness, which makes Hoyun panic after what just happened last night. So they travel to the Temple of the Healing Order inside the city. Hoyun lies in their bed with a blanket on top of his eyes while being surrounded by priests. They cast a healing spell on him, but are at a loss since it doesn't seem to be working. The other priest tells him that it should have measured the size of his disease based on the divine power consumed. Though Hoyun stays silent, refusing to expose his fake illness, the other priest assumes that it must be a high-level curse that junior priests like them can't sense after seeing that normal healing spells don't work. Hoyun takes off the blindfold after hearing his mistaken assumption, and thinks that it was natural that they can't sense an illness. As to why he was faking an illness, it started a few minutes ago. He pleads with Kizer to let him go, and that he will get better once he sleeps. But he refuses by stubbornly saying that he must fix the boss's illness. Which brings us to now, Hoyun is forced to fake his illness due to his underlings forcibly taking him to the temple. After trying to heal the boss for a while, the priest is now at a loss at what to do. Kizer hears him and bursts in anger once again, while Hoyun wonders what the ruckus could be. Then Kizer scares the junior priest, saying that despite being so diligent, they can't even heal a sick man. The junior priest replies, saying that he simply didn't expect his illness to be this severe and asks for a little more time. But Kizer becomes even more angry and grabs him by the collar, asking why he was dragging time while a patient with a high-level curse is suffering in front of him. He becomes tired of his excuses and orders him to bring the high priest in an instant, while telling him that he should remember what happened to the priest of the end, and threatens to do the same to him and his cult if he slows him down any further as Hoyun overhears their conversation, making him even more nervous. A person suddenly appears, asking if Hoyun is the patient with the human-identifiable curse. Kizer asks the mysterious person who he or she is aggressively, but the mysterious person simply asks him to move aside. Hoyan takes a peek at the person's appearance and is clueless about their identity. The mysterious person states that his face doesn't look good at all, which might be due to the curse, which angers Hoyan. The person then holds his hand over his body. It is revealed that the mysterious person is a feminine-looking priest and begins casting a spell, but he is suddenly shaken after casting the spell. His hands shiver, making Hoyan confused as to what he's fussing about. Heiser is also curious about what is happening, so he asks. The priest starts off by introducing himself as Elaine and that he is an intermediate-level priest of the Healing Order. Then he states something about his boss's curse. Even Hoyan is worried that he might have a curse after hearing his words. But his worries are quickly appeased after hearing that Elaine couldn't sense himself and suspects that he has the highest level curse. Both his underlings are surprised by what the intermediate-level priest just said and ask the boss if he is going to die. Hoyan tears up in frustration, wondering when they would realize that he is just faking his illness. The priests are surprised upon hearing that he has a high-level curse and are impressed by how he managed to get away with only his face looking like that, which makes Hoyan even more frustrated since they mistakenly think that his face is due to the effects of the curse. Lena is panicking after hearing about the curse as Elaine goes to call the Grandmaster, making Hoyan immediately get out of bed, trying to stop him. He gulps right before making a risky move, and asks the intermediate priest if he can speak with him alone, adding that he wants to talk about his illness, which immediately rouses his interest. And so they head to another room in the church where they can talk privately, which is Elaine's personal library. Elaine immediately starts off by asking if he can tell him about his circumstances. Hoyan affirms and says that he doesn't want the Grandmaster to get involved in this matter. But the priest refuses and tells him that the church can cover the expenses since such a rare case can help raise the order. But Hoyan cuts him off and asks what if they fail to heal him. He adds that his underlings are uncontrollable without him. So he asks that if he dies, then where does he think his underlings will retaliate? After hearing his explanation, Elaine is now at a loss for words, pinning him by saying that he has been given such a huge burden for having his appearance degenerate to that state on top of controlling his underlings. Hoyan is taken aback by his words and thinks what is wrong with his appearance since he always looked like that. But suddenly, Elaine thinks of something and slams the table as if he unraveled something great. He then asks whether he knew what his curse was beforehand, much to Hoyan's surprise, which made him wonder how he arrived at such a conclusion. Elaine cries as he pities him even more, thinking that he has endured so much due to his curse. He then asks the god of healing if this was their order's mission all along. Hoyan is flabbergasted by his delusional outbursts, so he decides to give up on clearing the misunderstanding. After enduring for a while, he then decides to leave, but Elaine stops him. He starts to cast a spell and tells Hoyan that he'll give him a small boost to slow down the curse's progress. The spell activates as holy magic emanates from his hand. He casts Invigorate, which seems to have an effect on him. After seeing the glowing holy magic, he simply stands still, being amazed. A text box appears saying that all conditions have been cured, and so he asks the priest what he's trying to do. And so he states that he has a mission to fulfill, then asks Hoyan if he could join his party, which surprises him even more than the other things he witnessed today. Elaine adds that he doesn't need money nor conditions, which takes Hoyan aback. But Elaine continues and asks him again to let him accompany them. The reason for his surprise is that healers are an essential part of a party, and if he wants to hire one, then he has to pay a ton of money. However, Elaine refuses to get paid, which makes the offer even more enticing. He is sure that he doesn't have enough specs to hire such a powerful healer early on in the game, but in reality, this opportunity is right before his eyes. Hoyan is impressed that it is possible to be able to do such a thing, but he gets worried since all the luck he's been getting has started to feel a bit unnatural. Even if it was due to his charisma, it would still be a bit too much luck, since hiring a member of the order even after raising his status would only be enough to hire an intern who lacks both experience and training. But Elaine is an intermediate-level priest, so it's extremely lucky to get 1-2 levels above the norm. And so he thinks that no matter how good he was, the chance in front of him is still a bit too suspicious, which makes Elaine ask him if he still isn't satisfied. Hoyan suddenly remembers that it could be due to special treatment from being a former ranker. Elaine tries to convince him again with his magic, but he has made up his mind. He'd like to accept the offer, but the management teams will take credit for his actions if he becomes a ranker with the help of Elaine. And so he tells the priest that he is still not good enough for his party, which harshly rejects his offer, much to his dismay. Sometime after Elaine attempts to join Hoyan's party, the party leaves the church before sunset, leaving Elaine and the other priests disappointed. He struggles as he tries to tell the priests something with a shaky voice, and has difficulty expressing his emotions. While Lena and the others are walking away, she asks what he did to the priest to make him like that, to which Hoyan doesn't reply. Back in the church, however, Elaine continues to feel pity for him, shedding tears in the process, and also asks the other priest to accompany him in praying for him. An hour later, night came. The party then goes to a shady back alley restaurant to eat. In the restaurant, Hoyan continues to be slumped in disappointment as his skin glitters after the invigorating skill earlier. He continues to not say a single word, leaving his underlings curious as to why. And so Lena asks why his face is glossy yet his expression looks grim. Kaiser agrees for the first time and also asks the boss if there is something making him angry. He holds his hands over his face and tells them that he doesn't want to blame anyone. But he states that their party screws up in even the simplest things, which grabs both his underlings' attention, sparking another fight over who was messing things up between the two. Huiyan stops the two and reminds them that he wasn't trying to blame anyone. Since there is no point in blaming each other, he tells them that there is a solution to this predicament that he blatantly overlooked, which causes the two to pay attention to his words. He tells them that it's the bargaining skill. It's a skill where you essentially create something out of nothing, a simple but important skill. The rank at which your bargaining proficiency rises is directly based on their achievements in bargaining. As he explains this skill, Lena interjects saying that it sounds lame, which surprises Huiyan since he thought that she had learned it already. He gives up on yapping about the skill, and instead decides to show a demonstration. Huiyan calls over the owner to their table with a hand gesture. A menacing, big, muscular man comes and responds to his call. He asks what he could do to help him. Huiyan asks him to take a look at something. It is the number of food items they ordered. The owner says that they seem to have ordered quite a lot. Huiyan agrees and tells him that this should be a big contribution to the store's daily sales. He activates the bargaining skill as he asks the owner for some freebies with a stern look. His underlings are surprised at his demonstration and continue to take a close look. The owner thinks for a bit before he unexpectedly agrees to his proposal and tells them that they can have the drinks for free, which shocks both his underlings that the skill worked flawlessly. The owner calls the chef over for the drinks as Huiyan continues to explain that bargaining is important to get what they want without violence after his successful demonstration. Kaiser slams his hand onto the table, grabbing the owner's attention, causing him to look back. He repeats his boss's words about the skill of bargaining, but leaves the violence part out. Smiling eerily, he tells the boss that he completely understands. He calls over the owner and tells him that he must have vaguely felt it, that the boss wants something else, which makes Huiyan panic, thinking about what crazy stuff he's about to pull. The air is filled with silence for a while after his proclamation. The owner responds, saying that if he causes trouble, then he will call the guards over immediately. He simply replies, saying that the boss just came from the police station. After destroying the city, he was let off without having any charges and was even compensated. The owner finds something strange and asks them if they are a part of a criminal organization he hasn't heard about, making Huiyan extremely nervous. The owner starts to smile while continuing to talk, saying that they must have approached this restaurant knowing its importance for crime organizations. Suddenly, hooligans open the ceiling and begin to drop to the floor holding an assortment of weapons. The owner taunts them and tells them to show their true colors after having his subordinates surround them, and that he'll make them a delicious meal that they so desire, which causes everyone in the party but Huiyan to get ready to fight. Kaiser shows an evil smile on his face, before proclaiming that he'll take the things he wants through bargaining, and decides to take the store as he charges headfirst to attack, with Lena following, supporting him, while Huiyan stands silently, unable to stop them. He starts off by charging up an attack, which makes the gangsters nervous facing such a big hunk of a man. An unexpected event appears for Huiyan. For the restaurant secretly operated by a gang, he must show them what his party can do as Kaiser swings the sword, defeating a lot of gangsters. The owner narrowly dodges his attack, and is shocked to see that he managed to defeat half of his men in a single swing. So he orders his men to spread out in order to not be taken out by Caesar's sword as Lena sneaks behind him. She then surprises the owner and asks him to pay attention to her as well. Lena licks her sword, which makes him remember who she is, before attacking him, completely leaving Huiyan speechless due to the chaos they cause. The criminals run away from them as they continue to attack while Huiyan sees the reward for the victory of this battle. He can become the owner of this restaurant if they manage to win. A few moments later, the place is now quiet, with the owner struggling on his knees, as he asks the evil party for forgiveness for causing a ruckus, and that he failed to see their toughness, which was evident on their leader's face, making Huiyan question himself again about his face as Lena comforts him. The boss tells them that it is too late for regrets and instead asks them a question about how they know Lena since he recognized her earlier in their fight. The owner tells him that it was obvious he knows her since she's a high-level fighter in their criminal organization, and that she single-handedly destroyed one of their branches before completely disappearing, making her one of the most wanted people in their organization. After hearing that she's one of the most wanted, he breaks out in a cold sweat while Lena takes the situation lightly. He realizes that they were being chased by the criminal organization ever since they destroyed the branch and recruited her. Being tracked by such an organization means that they will be treated as a criminal organization themselves in public, and so he resigns himself thinking that they already crossed the line a long time ago, then wallows in despair since there is no turning back anymore. And since there is no turning back, he scares the owner due to his association with the criminal organization, making them nervous as to what he's planning to do. Huiyan continues and states that there is no point in keeping them alive while looking like a ruthless murderer, hoping that this will solidify his evil image. The gangsters are shocked after hearing his threat, panicking after hearing him order Lena to kill them all. The owner asks him to wait, saying that they will all go under him in exchange for their lives. It grabs his attention, so he stops and tells them that their pathetic strategy to cling onto their lives won't work on him due to the fact that it's his own specialty. The owner tells him that their lives aren't the only reason they're willing to go under him, but also the state of their organization. Lena interjects and asks him what happened after she disappeared. He tells her that their organization is losing its identity due to a boy that recently entered, boasting a silver tongue which has a penchant for manipulating people and captured the hearts of the executives and even suggested a new business model. When that business took off, their once den of freedom, which was the base of organizations, suddenly declined due to the fact that it wasn't bringing in any more money. Adding the fact that they have a bad image due to security issues, they fell into this pathetic state. And according to the rumors, the boy that joined was supposedly just a pickpocket, possibly referencing the pickpocket Hoyun that a few days back. And so he decides with a firm resolve that he wants to join his organization, thinking that there are infinite possibilities within. The overwhelming strength to destroy everything in one strike, and the amazing charisma of a boss with a scary face. Lena gets tired of his yapping and attempts to swing her sword to take off the man's head, but Hoyun stops her in the middle of it. He tells the owner that he has acknowledged his reasoning, and that he'll take the offer for his store. Lena protests, saying that they are a part of a criminal organization who could possibly find a way to stab them in the back, overlooking the fact that she was also once a part of the gang. Hoyun denies the possibility of that happening since they will be killed by the organization either way for failing to stop them, causing the owner to become nervous, and adds that they are already dead from the start, so they have no choice but to obey. He then threatens them, saying that if they want to prolong their lives, then they should pledge their lives to him while activating the boss spirit skill. The owner falls silent upon his threat, fully submitting to his law. And so the unexpected event is now complete, making the people of the back alley restaurant swear loyalty to him. The restaurant is also his territory from now on as a reward, allowing him to collect protection fees and taxes from it. After submitting to Hoyun's party, the owner grovels facing the ground and kisses his feet in respect. The party smiles once again, exposing their evil nature after seeing the owner's pathetic state. He now has fulfilled the conditions to form an organization, and so he makes one, aiming at the Black Mountain Association. Lena laughs at the name as he officially forms the organization, which gives him a bunch of experience and skill points as a bonus. The formation of this organization is a key element of his boss play, so he strengthens their morale with a reminder to give him only loyalty or death. Keezer then excitedly asks what his plans are for the future, to which he replies sternly, saying that their organization will have a goal of beating the labyrinth. Lena interrupts, saying that their goal is a bit too normal for a criminal gang. He responds by saying that power and wealth are also important, but that is a small part of his goal, adding that the true reason for beating the labyrinth is to acquire the strength of the powerful monsters within, which is unmatched. And so he proclaims that he wants to subjugate those powerful monsters instead of lowly insignificant things, which motivates both of his party members. He then signals the start of their adventure as they run off into the night, leaving the restaurant speechless after hearing his grand plan. Meanwhile, in the Eastern District, within the slum village where they previously went, the pickpocket boy receives a message from a bird, stating that the back alley restaurant was stolen in only half a day. It also states that a big emerging organization was the cause of the incident, so he decides to get involved with his strong-looking subordinate named Thomas. As the sun rises, Hoyun starts a monologue proclaiming that being the ruler of the Labyrinth City is of no use to him, but instead he plans to overcome it with his own hands in order to become the best. A text box appears as he has now set a goal and ambition, while Lena compliments his ugly expression. His back alley restaurant that he recently acquired added notoriety to his newly formed organization due to the fact that it was a remnant of a violent organization, which increases their notoriety significantly. Inside the restaurant, a henchman states that they have a problem right after surviving the previous night. The previous owner agreed, saying that the news must have reached the child controlling the criminal organization. He also heard that the boy had recently acquired an absurdly strong bodyguard who seems to be equal to Caesar's stature. As the boy and his bodyguard arrive at the square, a guard arrives and stops them in their tracks. He states that it is now illegal to carry massive weapons in the city square. The boy asks him why that is. He tells him that it was because of a person whose notoriety has recently risen. The people described him as a man with a big sword, and that there were records that the user was released without charges even after being caught red-handed due to his connections with the guild. The boy thinks for a bit, as the officer continues to explain that they are only taking precautions to prevent such an accident from happening again, and tells the boy to leave his bodyguard's weapon with him, which irritates the man. The boy acknowledges what he said, but as he looks over at Thomas, he looks as if he is seething in anger, before suddenly leaping to attack the guard with his massive sword, while the boy tries to stop him. Meanwhile, Hoyun's party explores near the labyrinth as their organization's notoriety forms. This affects their reputation inside and outside the organization. However, this also affects their chances of being targeted by groups of authority. Hoyun notices the gaze of the bystanders who seem to look at them with suspicious eyes. He never thought that he would receive this much attention, so it makes him feel a bit proud. that he starts to think of the potential riches he could get after he becomes the center of attention, while his underlings are also feeling proud with the attention they now receive, which would allow him to easily control them in the future. He then remembers his previous character's fall, spoiling his mood, making him think twice about his grand plan. But he resolves himself after thinking of such cowardly things. He decides to use his party properly this time to achieve what his previous character couldn't do. He steels himself, thinking that he needs to succeed unlike his previous attempt, which makes him announce something to his underlings. He tells them that proceeding with their goal will be a one-way ticket to hell, which will give them a ton of hardships. Then ominously stops his speech, before stating that they will definitely die unless a miracle happens. So he asks them once again if they are ready to make a miracle happen with him. After his announcement, he is met with silence from his underlings, before they sternly refuse his offer, which surprises him. Lena explains that he proposed a bit too much and advises him not to get carried away just from gaining a few subordinates. Kizer agrees and also tells him to take it easy since the game just started, confusing Hoyeon due to their sudden practicality. He gives up on his ultimate goal for now and decides to put it off until later. The three of them start to think of what to do for now, but they all plan on doing different things, so they fail to make a decision on what to do first. But suddenly, a warning appears, which alerts Hoyeon. There is an emergency intruder alert, stating that the Black Mountain Association's restaurant is now under attack, making him panic due to the unexpected turn of events. At the back alley restaurant, the whole place is wrecked from a recent fight. The pickpocket boy tells the restaurant manager that it wasn't easy to come all the way to this place as the bodies of his defeated subordinates lie on the ground. Since there were some minor complications on his way to the restaurant, he tells them that he could come earlier if it weren't for them. The manager stays silent for a while, before telling the boy that he already looked like he was in a hurry, and deduces that he was acting without the organization's instructions, which seems to trigger him. The boy then acknowledges his sharp observation and tries to brush it off, but the manager continues to mock him, saying that he's such a child, and explains that this place is still property of the organization even if they are currently under a different power now. If the boy had just used the place to lure the robbers, then it would have ended easily, but he chose to destroy it, so he guesses that he has a personal grudge against the new owners of the restaurant. The manager then laughs after realizing that the boy also has a big bodyguard similar to Hoyeon, so he mocks him by saying that he must feel a sense of inferiority to him, seeing that he imitated his move, which ticks the boy off. He then calls his bodyguard over and tells him that the manager betrayed his colleagues, which triggers Tama, who suddenly remembers a bitter memory due to his words, causing him to tear up in sadness. And so he swiftly goes to attack the manager after wildly swinging his sword around, calling him trash while looking at him blankly with teary eyes. But Kizer intervenes in the nick of time and manages to deflect his attack, causing the sword to fly away as he fiercely entered the scene with his sword glowing due to the impact from earlier. Tama is surprised by his sudden appearance, while the boy stands still, frozen in place as he recognizes Kizer. The psychopath looks back at him, causing him to shiver in fear. He looks at him with murderous intent as he tries to recall the boy's face. The boy then struggles to speak due to his uncontrollable fear, but he manages to collect himself and pretends as if he was confident all along while stating that he came to take revenge on them after stealing his gold. Kizer then states that he forgot who he was and asks why a child is doing such things, while Tama stood silently with shaking hands. The boy replies and says that he couldn't have possibly forgotten him, since he himself could never forget what happened that day. He reminds him that on that humiliating day, Kizer hung him upside down on his sword and paraded him all over town. After hearing the boy's story, he falls silent and seems to have remembered something. Kizer becomes enraged, remembering that the boy was the pickpocket who stole the boss's money, causing him to be humiliated. The boy panics as he tries to reply to him while Hoyeon and Lena arrive at the scene, causing the boy to look back at them while Lena reminds the boss to slow down so he doesn't get sicker. Hoyeon notices the ruckus unfolding and sees that Tama is getting ready to attack behind Kizer. He tried to tell him about his oncoming attack, but it was too late for Kizer to try to dodge. So he receives the attack full force, causing the wall to shatter behind him, launching him outside after the wall was destroyed. As the rubble fell onto the ground, Kizer is left seemingly unconscious, leaning against a wall outside the restaurant. Tama then goes to approach his body, looking as if he was ready to finish him off. After witnessing the scene, Hoyeon is shocked by the man's power, causing the boy to annoyingly boast about his underling's destructive power. As he yapped about the damage his underling did, Hoyeon finally snaps and praises him with murderous intent, causing the boy to fall silent. Hoyeon praises how skillfully the boy destroyed his base and rushes to attack him, but Lena stops him and says that he's just a kid, so the boy mocks him even more. Hoyeon yells at him, saying that Kizer is stronger than his underling, so there's no way he would die from only one hit, but Lena doubts it. The boy laughs at how he is underestimating his underling and asks him if he knows who Tama is. He explains his backstory and introduces him as Piercing Wind Tama, who was once an adventurer who roamed the depths of the labyrinth. However, as all others who were named, he also lost all of his comrades and was defeated at the threshold of the abyss. But due to some circumstances or sheer will to live, he persevered throughout the depths and managed to go back to the surface. Thus he alone escaped and survived from the depths, losing his mind in the process due to the immense guilt from losing all of his comrades, which is the reason he cries every time he hears someone betray their colleagues. Back to Tama, he tells Kizer to stand up, since all of his comrades will die by his hands if he doesn't fight back. But Kizer stays silent while seemingly unconscious. Inside the restaurant, the boy continues to brag, saying that Tama presented him with a new opportunity that he lost when he failed to become a great thief. He first met Tama locked up inside the criminal organization's base, and managed to recruit him, which earned the trust of the executives. The boy stops talking and tries to reiterate what he said, but Hoyan doesn't care and tells him that he stopped listening a while ago since his story was so boring, as Lena yawns in the background. This enrages the boy and he proclaims that it's over for him and his underlings, triggering Hoyan in the process. He then tells the boy that even the priest of the end couldn't defeat his underling, but Lena suddenly interrupts and talks to the kid. She then rushes over to the boy. Holding her sword, she tells him that he might be misunderstanding something, and asks who is defending him right now. Lena tells him that she doesn't see anyone, so she scares him by saying that his underling's strength doesn't matter since he's all alone right now. She then swings her sword in an attempt to kill the boy since her boss hates guys who talk too much. Hoyan tries to stop her despite the fact that he tried to do the exact same thing earlier, but Lena suddenly detects something. It's Tama who was charging at her to defend the boy. He desperately charges to attack her while bawling his eyes out at the same time. Hoyan warns Lena and yells at her to dodge, but it was too late since she is now within arm's reach, and so he manages to grab hold of her head as he leaps into the air, which prevents Lena from seeing anything. The boy then laughs and boasts about how Tama would never leave him alone, also saying that his underling is now done for. But a loud sound suddenly erupts, which makes him go silent. He looks over to where the sound is and sees something inexplicable. It was the sight of Kizer grabbing hold of Tama's feet as he smiled eerily upon catching him. He then tells him to never let his guard down, right before throwing him away, releasing Lena in the process. Tama then slams into the restaurant's wall after being thrown so hard, leaving behind a dust trail after flying through. Kizer states that what happened to his colleagues doesn't matter anymore as he walks over to fight him once again, but Tama stays silent as he leans against the wall. While Kizer coughs up blood due to the injury he sustained earlier, but he still challenges Tama and orders him to pick his own weapon up, then tells him that this is their battle, which triggers the system to initiate a 1v1 battle with Tama, sparking confusion in both Hoyan and Lena. But Tama continues to stay silent despite his challenge, before suddenly waking up with murderous intent. He then picks up his weapon as he stands up while a text box appears stating that an unexpected event is occurring. The text box explains that Tama has been burdened with guilt ever since abandoning his colleagues. He is now projecting his fear onto Caesar since he is threatening his life, and by defeating Kizer, he believes that he can be freed from the guilt that has been haunting him ever since, and is pushing his body to its limits since he is more desperate than ever. Their goal is to survive Tama, who has poured all of his life force into fighting, which makes Hoyan nervous due to the quest being so ominous. The fight starts with Tama wildly swinging at Caesar, but he manages to deflect it, causing massive winds to generate from the collision. Hoyan couldn't believe that such wind pressure was generated just from a sword fight. He then asks Lena to join in on the fight to support his underling. Seeing the two fight like maniacs, she refuses and makes up an excuse, saying that she specializes in quick assassination, making Hoyan mad. As the fight progresses, they become even faster after each swing. While Kizer attacks with full force, Tama then parries it skillfully. He then starts to focus as if readying a powerful attack. Kizer notices this and tries to retaliate, but he is too late as Tama swings his sword upward, causing the other to lose his guard. Hoyan witnesses his attack and is surprised by its firepower. He wonders if he was really in reality. Seeing such a big man like Kizer be launched up in the air after only a single swing, he lost his footing, making him vulnerable to attacks due to the inability to dodge mid-air. While Kizer flew, however, Tama gets ready for another attack. He senses immense bloodlust, making him fully alert to the oncoming attack. A warning appears as Tama charges up his attack, shattering the ground in the process. The warning states that he is about to do his ultimate move. He then unleashes a powerful move, swiftly cutting Kizer as a result. This ultimate move is called the Storm Hawk's Gust, a piercing wind that cuts through the labyrinth. Kizer smashes through the wall after being hit by such a powerful attack. Tama is then left standing unscathed. Hoyan is worried about his underling, so he yells out, calling his name. Though the annoying boy appears, mocking his underling's supposed loss. He comes out from hiding under the table and continues boasting about his own underling, saying that if Kizer was hit with such an attack, then it would be no surprise if he was split in two. The boy then calls Tama over, manipulating him again to attack the remaining two, and tells him that they are cowards that let their colleague die right in front of them, triggering his trauma. He then calls them trash as he cries. Hoyan is now exhausted after repeated inconveniences and tries to look for a solution. He didn't expect that such early game events were important, which in turn came back to bite him. Lena then decides to step up and fight Kizer as Hoyeon shouts at her for deciding this late into the fight. She then casts an illusion, which she should have also used earlier. Tama becomes alert after she casts the skill, since there are now afterimages of Lena appearing due to the speed of this skill. As she moves around, she taunts Tama, saying that he won't be able to follow her movements, and with his reaction speed, he doesn't stand a chance. Then she suddenly launches an attack behind him. Tama tries to react swiftly, but a sword comes flying in their direction, interrupting their fight as Lena screams in surprise. Due to the sword, Tama's weapon also comes flying out of his hand, making Lena dive out of the weapon's trajectory. Tama then takes a look at who suddenly threw the sword, and sees Kizer looming outside the whole of the restaurant berating Lena for interrupting their fight. He then proclaims that this is his fight, before swiftly dashing inside to attack, leaving behind a shockwave, which sends dust flying all over the place. With bare hands, he faces Tama one-on-one. They both grasp each other's hands to topple the other over, starting some sort of sumo fight as the two refuse to budge even an inch. They face each other with murderous resolve, ready to pour their lives out for this fight. Kizer tightens his grip even more, and asks Tama why he is so obsessed with his colleagues, then mockingly suspects that he was betrayed by his most trusted colleague at the most crucial time. It sparks a response from him, seemingly looking disturbed. Kizer states that colleagues are only a necessity, so there's no point in clinging onto them like he does, and adds that he is just so weak that he wasn't even considered a necessity. He then continues to degrade him further, saying that he didn't even realize that there's no use for the weak even after going through the labyrinth. Hoyeon overhears this and is shocked to hear such unspeakable things come out of his underling's mouth. He seems to be a bit affected by his statement, causing Lena to joke that he was talking about the boss. Back in the fight, Kizer is dominating their battle of strength and steps forward as he continues to insult him, stating that Tama can never surpass him, since he failed back then in the first place. Tama's mind goes blank after his onslaught of insults, and he cries tears of blood due to his overwhelming rage, remembering a scene from his past where his colleague is surrounded by demons in the labyrinth, telling him to survive as tears fell from her eyes. Upon being reminded of his tragic past, his blood boils in his complete rage, and he goes berserk as he screams in pain, to the point that blood bursts all throughout his body. The three are shocked at the events unfolding right before their eyes. Due to his underling's critical state, the boy calls for him, worried that he might die. The system then begins to say that Tama's rage state exceeds what his body can handle. Even with all of that, the two of them still didn't budge an inch and still continued fighting. Hoyeon couldn't believe that Kizer triggered such an event happening even if he was this overpowered, since an event like this is basically the final boss of the early game. But with Kizer's provocations, it happened way earlier than it was supposed to. Thus, he continued with his insults even with his opponent rampaging. He then tells Tama that he now knows why he failed this whole time, causing the three to be in suspense about what he's about to say. Kizer continues and states that his defeat in his foolish past was due to him simply not having a boss in his party. Hoyeon is puzzled by what he just heard, but Kizer kept on pushing the idea that the reason his colleagues died was due to their fragile ties that loosened when they were in a crisis, and that kind of situation could have been easily avoided with the presence of a superior power like a boss. Then he proclaims that once he has a boss, he can force himself to pour his life out for their sake, adding that he can abandon colleagues but never a boss. This caused a devastating revelation in Tama, while Hoyeon is shocked at the stupidity of what his underling just said. With his resolve crumbled, Tama yells out in pain, unable to bear all his injuries, and falls to the floor with his blood splattering all over. As he falls unconscious, the system concludes the special event and states that the victor of this one-on-one is Kizer. His strength is now increased due to the experience gained from this battle, and he has also acquired a fixed stat called tenacity. The boy is now even more afraid of him, while the boss is wondering about something after his victory against Tama. He is puzzled why there are only a few rewards even though they cleared such a hard event, and suspects that the management team has something planned for them. Now that Tama is defeated, the boy is left with no defenses and is now shivering in fear. But Kizer is now unable to fight due to the injuries he sustained from his fight. While completely unaware of his underling's health, Hoyeon feels pride in conquering an event due to his competent underlings. Lena then brings him back to reality, as Kizer suddenly falls onto the floor unconscious. Then suddenly he is transported into a dark, empty cave. The system states that he is currently partaking in a special event scene named Caesar's Nightmare. He reports to his boss that he cut off all of the enemies, but Hoyeon simply looks back at him, unimpressed. His boss then asks if he really cut them up, causing Kizer to be shocked at his cold response, and stands frozen in place due to his words. Hoyeon continues, saying that he can't even identify the person he cut up, adding that such a messy victory is unacceptable, since true victory is flawless and graceful. He continues lecturing him by stating that his unruly and crude behavior doesn't suit the Black Mountain Association. Kizer is puzzled by his statement and asks his boss if he's being thrown away. Hoyeon then affirms his question with an apathetic attitude, as lightning strikes in the background. Kaiser then realizes something after hearing all of his boss's words, that this situation is only a dream, causing him to grit his teeth, and goes to attack the boss since he is sure that he would never test his loyalty like this. But as he approaches Hwoyeon to attack, he simply stares coldly at him, causing him to scream his lungs out in rage. Right at that moment, he wakes up, injured and lying in a soft hospital bed. He looks around the room and sees a note beside a pot of sunflowers. It was left by the boss and states that he should find him inside the city hall once he wakes up. He then reads the note earnestly as the sun beams from outside the window, crumpling the paper in frustration once he is done reading. The scene then cuts to the bustling city, inside Bronze East District City Hall, where Hwoyeon is surprised to hear shocking news about the madman Tama that they recently fought, who was once a massive problem to the guild before they managed to defeat him. It is revealed that he is a large landowner in the East District slums. The City Hall Estate Division staff Kled states that it is due to his past as a named warrior, and that it must be nice that Hwoyeon's Black Mountain Association has now become a partial owner of his land due to the Labyrinth's world system. She continues to say that Tama was a real problem on their side due to rumors of him colluding with a crime syndicate. Hwoyeon then realizes that the boy only hired Tama due to his wealth, causing him to be angry and scaring the boy. He then asks why he is only getting a part of the land since the original system states that he is entitled to own all the land Tama owns. Claude then smiles gently at his question and states that the reason is simple. It's because half of Tama's fortune already belongs to the boy, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. This causes Hwoyeon to try and attack the cowardly kid, but Lena stops him, saying that he is only a kid. The boy then begs for mercy and swears to become his slave if he lets him live. Hwoyeon is suddenly intrigued by his suggestion and stops rampaging, and thus they go to Tama's rundown manor to take a look at his property. The boss sees the messy and abandoned manor and wonders about something, so he asks if this is all the property and wealth of a supposedly well-known landlord. Hwoyeon then orders Lave to explain why the current situation looks like this. The boy looks at him in confusion and nervously asks him why he is calling him Lave when it's not even his name. This causes him to fly into a rage, with Lena stopping him as he yells at the boy, explaining that he calls him Lave since it is shorter than slave, making the boy accept his new name. As he continues scolding him about the current state of the manor, Kled notices something in the distance. It's a teddy bear impaled on a sharp stone sticking out of the manor's floor. She then questions why such a thing is inside this place. The boy explains that it's how Tama's regrets and fears manifest, so the whole manor is filled with such things. Lena laughs at his explanation and says that there is no way anyone can live in such a place. Lave then continues to remind them to be careful since some parts of the manor can be dangerous due to poison and some other stuff. Lena complains and tells the boss that the place wouldn't be worth much after all. So he rethinks his strategy since he didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to make use of the manor, thinking carefully about what to do next. He's interrupted by Kled, who says that he should demolish the whole building. It takes a while to register in his brain. Once he thought about it, he realized that would be the best solution to this predicament. And he also remembered something from the early part of the labyrinth, that they were only safe from the traps due to Caesar bulldozing through everything. It will be impossible to manage the place anyway, so they might as well destroy it. And after tearing down the place, he'll hire the renowned architect who specializes in hideout buffs for the new base of the Black Mountain Gang. But even though he has enough money to fund it, he decides to save money in order to afford an even fancier base with applied buffs. With his face warped into a crooked smile, it makes the others weirded out by his expression. But he pays it no mind and continues to wait for Caesar to demolish the place. He then laughs creepily in excitement, making the others creeped out even more. While thinking of his flawless plan, his laugh continues to reverberate throughout the mansion. When you build a hideout in the Labyrinth world, it offers various attributes and buffs to all affiliated members. And an ordinary hideout typically only offers basic functions like resting to restore health. But depending on the construction, it can also offer incredible buffs. Thus, when constructing a new building, it takes up to a month, but it can be shortened if you spend more gold. Back outside the Labyrinth City, at the downtown square where a lot of people are gathered, Caesar walks around trying to find his boss. As he continues to explore the place, he remembers his dream from earlier, making him grit his teeth. A man suddenly calls out to him while he's lost in his thoughts. He turns back to see who it is, and sees a man in a martial arts robe taunting him, so he asks what he wants, telling him that if he wants to keep his life, then he should mind his own business. But the man confidently proclaims that he could never be killed. This irritates Caesar, so he rushes over to the man in an attempt to scare him, but doesn't work. The man states that he heard that there was an epic one-on-one fight between two warriors wielding greatswords in the East District slums. This triggers a reaction out of Caesar, so the man continues to explain that the news has already spread, but there were barely any witnesses, and the damage caused by the greatsword's energy was the only trace for the people to deem it an epic battle. Caesar is wondering what he's trying to say, so the man tells him that he doesn't believe the rumors and says that it was only a messy brawl. This statement triggers Caesar even further, making him look at the man menacingly as he asks why he thinks that. The man kicks in front of him and tells him that there were no martial arts involved in the fight, so it can only be defined as a messy brawl. As he performs various martial arts moves, he states that hitting the right place at the right time with flawlessly efficient strikes and a flexible posture decides the momentum of the fight, gracefully proclaiming that the fight was missing the elegance of the Bakbakuan martial art. He then asks Caesar what he thinks of his skills, stating that he is a fighter who wields a greatsword, and offers him a chance to learn the martial art that could leave behind a legacy of epic combat in history. He continues to promote his gym, so Caesar tells him to shut up. The man is suddenly intimidated, but he still asks him what his decision would be. Caesar then states that he agrees to follow along with his farce with an evil smile on his face. Back in the Eastern District, inside the manor of Tommen the Piercing Wind, a blade pierces the wall in one quick motion. Leif managed to learn the skill Lena also tried to teach the boss earlier. Not only that, he also mastered the skill. Lena makes fun of the boss for not being able to learn the skill despite his slave easily mastering it. Kled interrupts and asks when his other underlings coming since it's already way past his shift. Hoya is irritated by his late arrival and wonders what Caesar is doing. He then apologizes to her and asks if she could entertain a question. Kled tells him to ask away with a slight smirk on her face. Hoyan states that he noticed the lack of maintenance in the East District on their way to the manor. And on top of that, a crazy well-known adventurer along with a thief has been wreaking havoc until recently. But the city hall also did make a move, though fortunately an unknown gang emerged and dealt with the troublemakers. He gets to the point and frankly states that he has never seen a government official give a crap about anyone to the point that they're willing to stay after work. Hoyan suspects that the city hall recognized the potential of his underling, so they sent someone to covertly address the situation by keeping them confined in the manor for the long term, causing Kled to laugh as she praises the boss for being so perceptive. But she corrects him, saying that the reason she stayed after work is due to her own personal feelings in the matter, making the others speechless after hearing her answer, and Hoyan flustered, thinking that she's romantically attracted to him. Going back to Caesar's situation with martial arts, it all started in the Great Era of Gears, where the difficulty of the game increased significantly from the beginning of the dungeon. As the dungeons yielded even greater rewards, it became even more important to acquire top-notch items to enhance the stats of each character. This presented the players a new goal, to farm rare items with the various events coming along, which in turn created a strength difference among the players, with the ones having no rare items at a disadvantage. So those players attempted to overcome the inequality through sheer effort alone. Thus, the players with the lack of rare items came together and created the martial arts system. The fact that they tried to improve their skills through training is commendable in and of itself, but there still exists a gap they cannot cross. Inside the Bakbo martial arts gym, the students there are shocked at the scene in front of them, along with the martial arts man from earlier. The cause of their shock is due to a student slammed into the ground, done by none other than the madman Caesar. He cracks his knuckles upon enjoying the martial arts the man from earlier yapped about. The martial arts man then scolds him, saying that the essence of the Bakbokuan martial arts is not to recklessly strike people, causing Caesar to mock its lousy name. The man is severely offended upon hearing his mockery. Caesar then grabs his collar, saying that he's bored from fighting small fries, so he orders him to bring someone strong to be his opponent, taunting him that if he doesn't do so, then that would be the end of his gym. The other members of the gym get spooked out and blame the man for bringing such an unhinged psycho into the gym. Suddenly, someone stomps his foot in anger. The tough-looking man shouts, asking who dares to cause a ruckus in the sacred gym, which grabs Caesar's interest. He looks at the tough-looking man who just shouted and shoves the person he was grabbing to ask if he is his opponent, before dashing towards him to face him one-on-one. He faces the muscular man menacingly and asks again if he's the strongest man in the gym. As the sun is getting ready to go down, the man stands his ground silently. Caesar gets amped up in front of the strong-looking man and gets ready to fight, but as the sun gleams over the man's face, it reveals the whimpering husk of a man as he trembles in terror. He then runs away crying in fear of Caesar. The other members of the gym cheer him up, saying that the master will teach him a lesson. Caesar is then enraged upon seeing the cowardly state of the gym, making the others freeze in fear, not knowing what he would do. He tells them that he is disappointed since he came here with great expectations only to be met with failures, adding that the man who recruited him said that he would achieve immortality by mastering the Bakbo martial art. He then asks them if they understand their situation right now, proclaiming that the only way that they can prove their claims earlier is to stay alive no matter what he does. The members tremble in fear after hearing his words. Unable to move, their will starts to shatter. Finally, a student throws a badge, yelling that he's had enough. The man from earlier scolds him, saying that the badge is a sacred proof that he is a part of the gym, causing him to reply in tears, telling him that he once believed that with enough effort, he could overcome any obstacle. But Caesar's status window alone is enough to prove that what he believes is wrong, since it shows that he's only at a low level and 15 years old. Despite that, his stats are so high that he can easily defeat mid-level adventurers like them, also thanks to an insane item set worth millions. The man sweats after seeing such unfairness. Not only that, Caesar is only a henchman who tends to another player, so he assumes that the man Caesar is serving is a much stronger psychopathic murderer. Meanwhile, Hoyan is chilling at the manor, suddenly feeling that someone is talking badly behind his back. The student then continues complaining about the unfairness of the situation, causing the other students to also become affected by his words. The instructor notices this and becomes nervous, thinking of how this will turn out. In front of such a menacing man, they cannot do anything, so he can only hope that their master doesn't have to step in to stop him. Kizer then grabs the collar of the cowardly student as he begs for mercy, causing him to ask the coward why he is despairing, right before slapping him straight across the face, leaving behind an inflamed cheek with his mouth spewing blood. Kizer continues to say that it's a fact that effort alone cannot overcome their limitations, since that's just how the world works, and by denying that fact, he is only running away from himself, causing him to call all of them cowards. So he asks again why they despair despite all of that, adding that they should just prove him wrong by simply showing him that they are flawless immortals. The instructor has now started to regret bringing such a ruthless demon into their gym. After Kizer's proclamation, badges start to drop one after another as the students quit, refusing to die for the sake of martial arts. Some students cry while others start to regret training instead of farming for items. The instructor panics after seeing all of his trainees quit one by one, but a bearded man stops the commotion and yells at Kizer not to hurt them. He takes a look at who shouted and sees an ominous man with a black belt. Back at Tama's manor, Lena tells the boss to stay away from Kled, but he is still frozen on the spot, flustered after what she just said. Hoyun complains, thinking that he's not even standing close to her. Kled then asks if she has done something wrong to warrant her suspicion, as Lena darts in front of her, asking what she wants to do and accusing her of having suspicious plans, adding that she shouldn't do as she pleases just because she has a big chest, while the others are intensely watching their heated quarrel. Lena says that she remembers her saying something about her personal feelings, so she denies it, accusing her of planning to extort money from the boss. She then prepares to take her head, proclaiming that their gang doesn't care about the law, as Hoyun tries to stop her. Lena shouts at the boss, asking if he's into girls like Kled, but Hoyun simply says that she should stop obstructing a civil official and carrying out her duties, so she gives him a choice to pick between them, leaving Hoyun clueless about deciding what to do. He wonders why all of this happened all of a sudden, thinking that he can't let things progress like this. Taking a step back, he deduces that a negotiation event has started to take place. Seeing that Kled tried to flirt with him, he thinks that was simply just for trying to take the upper hand in the negotiation. Despite knowing that, his heart still fluttered upon hearing her words. But even with her seduction, he still feels confident that he's gonna come out on top thanks to his charisma skill. Though winning isn't the only thing he's aiming for. Hoyun also wants the extended stat, which is discernment. With discernment, one can see through the invisible and unknowable, a truly powerful skill inside and outside of combat. His initial plan was to subdue Kled with charisma, which increases his negotiation level to obtain discernment. But there is now a problem. Hoyun is delusionally thinking that the women are fighting over him out of romantic feelings, while Lave watches over their predicament munching on popcorn. Going back to the gym, Kizer is silent upon the arrival of the gym master. The instructor asks why he is here since he was supposed to be resting. A fierce standoff occurs with neither side budging upon the sudden arrival of the master. He then starts to speak to the unwelcome guest, asking why he came to cause a ruckus even with all his incredible powers. As he shouts at Caesar, we see a fierce-looking old man named Gato, who is the master of the Backbow Gym. After he shouts, a huge gust of wind blows over all of them. The instructor is impressed that he can create such a forceful wave of wind with only his spirit, while Caesar stands in place taunting the man. He states his plan as he lifts his foot from the floor, before stomping powerfully onto the ground, shattering the floorboards in the process. The students of the gym lose their footing due to the destruction, as Kizer shouts, saying that he's only here to have fun oppressing the weak. Gato retaliates by performing a martial arts move. He waves his hand through the air and adjusts his footwork to gather a massive amount of energy from the environment. As he gathers it, he insults Kizer for destroying the gym and tells him that he will no longer let him do as he pleases. He then releases the energy with a move called Backbow Wind Blast. This swift attack travels almost instantaneously right before Kizer's face. He suddenly remembers his boss's words from the dream, saying that a messy victory is unacceptable, who also states that true victory is flawlessly elegant. With that, he thinks of a plan as he grins right before the attack reaches him. The attack successfully explodes on impact after reaching Kizer, causing parts of the gym to be destroyed and fly over the master, who is exhausted after performing the move. He lets out a sigh, thinking that he managed to defeat the uninvited guest. But Kizer's figure still appears after the dust settles, which surprises the master, wondering how he is still alive. The reason he survived is through the use of the instructor's body as a meat shield, which received the brunt of the attack, leaving him seriously injured. He then states that this is his flawless victory. After seeing one of his own injured, the master tells him to stop, while Kizer laughs due to his successful attempt at claiming a flawless victory. The master quickly rushes over to the instructor, who is named Kang Baksu, though Kizer tells him that he won't die due to his so-called immortality that he boasted. Gato yells at him, asking who he is and where he came from. Kizer answers by telling him that he's from the Black Mountain Gang. But the enraged old man shouts that he's never heard of such a gang and accuses him of being a dark heretic belonging to a demonic sect, while Caesar simply tells him to shut up and that he has no further business with him. The master stops him, saying that their fight is not yet over. But Caesar calls him a loser and tells him that he is disappointed after expecting the art of a flawless fight only to see a flawed master, adding that he has lost any interest, so he doesn't want to waste any more time, which lands a massive blow on his ego as he shivers in fear. Within the Backbow Gym, the master asks the uninvited guest if he'll leave in peace, refusing to retaliate even after being humiliated by him. But Caesar still devilishly denies leaving the gym in one piece, shocking the residents with his announcement. He then decides to conquer the place as he praises the brilliant sun shining upon his face. The master retaliates, saying that he'll never give up the gym even if he dies. He then orders all the trainees to stop him, so they rush over to attack him all at once. Cutting back to Tama's manor, Lena is pouting as she tells the boss to have fun with a city hall employee who has a heart as big as her chest. He then thanks her for being so considerate, but the discernment skill translates her words' true meaning, which says that he's dead if he really has fun with her, causing Lena to be frustrated at the boss for not knowing what she meant at first, while Hoyam complains, saying that she should have said so straightforwardly. As he continues to scold her for not having a good eye, he then asks Cled what she thinks of him. She answers saying that if it's him, and she thinks that he's pretty decent, making Hoy unhappy. But the skill translates the true meaning, which says that she doesn't give a crap about him at all, causing him to become enraged while making a gross face. Lena agrees with her true words and calls the boss disgusting, to which Cled also agrees, making their favorability towards him drop by 1. Hoyan has now started to go crazy after all their shenanigans. Meanwhile, Caesar is beating up the trainees at the gym one by one, with kicks surpassing the strength of their own martial arts, and powerful punches as hard as a boulder, which shatter the ground after one punch and create a massive gust of wind reaching outside the gym, causing the gym's nameplate to fall down and shatter as it reaches the ground. After the dust finally settles, we are left with only Caesar choking Gato after lifting him off the floor as the system announces that he has defeated him. Following that, Caesar's ability will now be slightly enhanced as a reward from achieving special XP after destroying the gym. His notoriety also increases by 100, while the Black Mountain organization's reputation also increases by 50. Back at Tama's Manor in the East District, Hoyan also receives a message that his notoriety increased by 50, much to their surprise, causing him to wonder what the hell Caesar has been doing while wandering around. So they go to the destroyed gym in the morning. Hoyan sees the place right before his eyes, and looks over the messy exterior before entering. After entering, he is met with a student neck deep in the floorboard, and the others are either unconscious or struggling to walk. Leon is taken aback after seeing all the destruction, while Lave asks what happened to the place. Hoyan answers, saying that he doesn't know and that the system just said that this building has now become their property. So he asks the instructor tending to the injured master what happened. The instructor asks him if he is also from the Black Goat Association, which irritates Hoyan, and he corrects him with a stern face, saying that it's Black Mountain. Gato wakes up after hearing the name of the organization and calls them cold-blooded ruffians, asking why they have to destroy the gym even though it was the worst one in the neighborhood, adding that he is so embittered and resentful, causing him to lose his strength and hope. Hoyan is clueless about what he did as the others start bawling their eyes out due to their defeat, while Lena makes fun of him for being trash, knowing full well that he didn't do anything. So Hoyan tries to show mercy by saying that he has no interest in this place. The instructor asks him who he is and what he is trying to say after coming so late. He replies saying that he is the boss of the Black Mountain, and that it is best for him to remember that name. Hoyan then apologizes for the destruction his subordinate did to the place and states that he himself doesn't have anything to do with it. The instructor gains hope after hearing his words, but then Hoyan also tells them that he is a busy man working towards a big ambition that losers like them can't even begin to fathom, causing Lena to make fun of him and call him a devil king. He then continues to say that he doesn't have time to care about such a sweaty place, so despite the owner of the building changing, they are free to do what they want, causing them to become speechless. But then the master grits his teeth, before yelling that they should stop being so nonchalant. Hoyan becomes irritated at his response and asks him what he wants. Gato explains and says that the actual reason that their gym is out of business is due to their students being snatched away. Hoyan tells him that it must be due to the big companies offering free gifts if people join, but Gato firmly replies, saying that it's not only because of that. He then explains that martial arts originally train the force and place importance on proper mind cultivation, but a violent gym ruined it all by promoting pragmatism with killing. And due to that, some trainees moved over from the traditional way of the Backbow Gym to join them, promising a surefire way to obtain strength. So if news comes out stating that the Backbow Gym was defeated and robbed by a thug, then that would be the end of them. Hoyan's head aches after being faced with this difficult situation and wonders what caused Caesar to make a mess this big. Suddenly, the master grovels on the ground, begging him to take in their gym, while the instructor tries to stop him. Lena teases him, saying that he seems to attract a lot of sweaty men despite being an idiot when it comes to women, which irritates him. Gato also tells him that he's willing to go under his crotch to beg, making Hoyun step away from him. Lave then interrupts, saying that if rumors come out stating that such losers are associated with the Black Mountain, then that would sully their reputation, which further annoys Hoyun. He then looks under him and sees the old man going under him, causing him to give in to them. The instructor cries after seeing his master humiliating himself for the sake of the gym. So he also joins in on his master going under Hoyun's crotch, causing Lina and Lave to become disgusted. The other trainees also join in, further pressuring Hoyun to take them in as his underling laughs behind him. And some night comes after all the commotion. The gym is now cleaned up while Gato teaches them martial arts, while Hoyun is drained and leans on a pillar while wondering where Kizer went. Lina also asks the instructor where he went since they have many things to do. The instructor replies saying that he also thought he was going to go back to them after crushing the place, but something unexpected suddenly happened. Kizer told them earlier that he is still thirsty and longs for a flawless fight. Since there is no way that he can find it in their gym, the master personally recommended him to go to the Cheongnak gym. Hoyun wonders why he sent him there. Knowing that Kizer destroyed their gym, it doesn't make sense to send him to another gym out of goodwill. So he uses his discernment skill to see what he plans to do. He discovers something which shocks him, then immediately orders Lina to go to the Cheongnak gym, to which she questions why. Hoyun panics and tells her that Kizer is in grave danger. At the center of the labyrinth city, there lies the Cheongnak gym's main building, where trainees are training with swords and close quarters combat in general. A man oversees a gym so large that the Bakbo gym pales in comparison. On the wall, there are a couple of swords elegantly displayed. Right behind the master of the gym named Cheonghak, an instructor named Varden calls out to him, saying that he is here to meet him. Cheonghak eerily tells him that he has already heard the news and that he can't believe that such a commotion happened while he was away. Varden apologizes for the weak security, saying that they didn't know that such a master was still left in a powerful group. He finds it strange that there is a master, since he heard that it was just a thug that caused the commotion. Varden apologizes again and blames it on the report as Cheonghak listens to him yap. Suddenly, he hits Varden, causing his face to bleed, then calls him pathetic for the disgrace he caused the association, insulting him for being a concubine's child and saying that he can't even be coming on for basic work. Varden then bows his head while repeating the report, saying that an unidentified man made an attack on one of their gyms and beat them down till most of them were injured, adding that the man also used a move similar to the Baekbokwan technique used by Gato, causing Cheonghak to laugh after hearing the name and wonder how that technique's legacy is still preserved. So he decides to visit Gato personally. He also gives Varden another chance, ordering him to hold the intruder in place until he gets back. As he leaves, he continues to insult him for being a concubine's child and reminds him that this is the last chance he's going to give him. Varden dejectedly answers him as he disappears into the night. Meanwhile, in one of Cheonghak's gyms, we see Kizer tied up to the wall, while the other instructors are in awe after hearing what he did, as he smiles eerily while staring at them. They discuss that he was the one who killed Tama and is also strongly wanted by the guild. But one of them asks why it was so easy to catch him despite being so powerful, since no one in their gym except their master has engaged in a fight with Tama. Kizer replies, saying that he is disappointed after knowing that there is also no one that could match him here. The instructor with a sword yells at him to shut up and that he is no more than a prisoner at their mercy right now. And he also asks what happened to the kid who was with Tama before he died. Kizer answers, saying that it's obvious, as he recalls a scene that might be slightly exaggerated where Lave asks the boss if he can go to the toilet, but the boss simply brushes him off harshly, so the boy simply pees his pants. So Kizer thinks that Hoyun brainwashed the boy into becoming a slave after torturing him inhumanly, causing the others to be shocked at his boss's cruelty. So the instructor decides to end Kizer's life after hearing such inhumane acts. He rushes over to slice him up with his sword, but Kizer simply grins and tells him that he is being too hasty. The instructor is shaken after seeing what's in front of him, as Lina suddenly appears and cuts his sword in half, saving Kizer in the process. She then kicks him away after breaking his sword. Kizer laughs out loud as Lina announces that the mission is cleared. So she asks why he is laughing and acting so great, but he simply brushes it off and greets her rudely. He then asks if she is now willing to obey him, seeing that she took care of the enemies for him, to which she denies and makes fun of him for being tied up. So she wonders what happened to him and what he was thinking to end up this way. He replies, saying that he is looking for a flawless fight as he smiles creepily. Lina is confused by what he said and understood it as a no-damage fight, making her boast about her flawless body that has no wounds even after countless fights. Furthermore, she also asks what he thinks he's going to learn here after seeing that this place is full of weaklings, and that he should just follow her since she is older instead of wandering to random places. He then becomes enraged at her cockiness as the rope struggles to stay in place. She tells him to calm down, but he doesn't listen. Instead, he breaks free of the ropes and asks her to prove her ability to have a flawless fight. She agrees as she faces him head-on, and challenges him to a fight while betting that the one who loses will obey the other. But their fight is interrupted by the instructor telling them that the fight isn't over yet. He then proclaims that he will no longer allow them to dirty their sacred gym anymore, then introduces himself as the fast sword Yolmu of the Cheonhak gym before challenging them to a fight. He is then met with silence, before the two decide that he will become the pawn for their challenge, causing him to break out in a cold sweat as they swiftly move to attack him with murderous eyes, causing screams to erupt from the gym. Sometime afterward, back at Bakbo Gym, the two of them return and are surprised after hearing what the boss just said. Hoyeon sweats nervously after hearing the news of what Kizer just did. Lena tells him with a dumb expression that she forgot that the Cheonhak Gym was affiliated with the largest crime guild despite being a member herself in the past. She then talks to Caesar, saying that they cause a bunch of trouble as she pokes his nose, making the others surprised at their behavior. So Hoyeon asks them why they have suddenly become close. Lena enthusiastically explains what happened, that Kizer lost a bet since he received a scratch to the face as she makes fun of him, leaving Hoyeon completely speechless. She continues to humiliate him by treating him like a dog as Kizer dejectedly obeys her orders, saying that's only for today, causing the other two to give up after seeing the mess they are in. Sometime before their return at the bar where the fight against Tama took place, the manager is feeling proud after reconstructing the place with fancier stuff. He tells his workers that it's finally over, and that he is deeply moved after achieving success, then hugs the workers while praising their hard work all this time. They cry all together after achieving their dream of managing such a great bar. One worker tells him that he didn't expect the Black Mountain gang that destroyed the store to be so generous. The owner agrees and says that even if it was the former criminal guild, they can't even fathom this level of success, since their tax is drastically lower than before, and most importantly, the management's autonomy is also guaranteed, adding that their terrifying faces are also a blessing, to which his worker denies. The manager then thinks that this must be the good karma they gained, which was earned after years of cleaning up after the criminal guild, causing him to spin around in joy. As he celebrated the grand opening of the Black Mountain Bar, he tells them that he can now imagine the scene of them diligently serving crowds of customers in the restaurant. Suddenly, a person comes into the bar. Thinking that the person is a customer, he rushes to greet them as he introduces the bar, but it was just Lave who arrived, making the manager quickly recognize his face. But before he can say anything, Lave interrupts him and says that Hoyeon has summoned every member to go somewhere. The manager tells him that it's not even an emergency, so he asks what the fuss is about. Lave tells him that he will know once he gets there. So they go to Tama's manor, where they are supposed to be summoned, and see a note tacked on the wall, which orders them to demolish the place cleanly until he comes back after finishing an important task. The manager is now silent after reading such a note, while one of his men gets ensnared in a trap in the background. He now wonders if he is being treated as a laborer after seeing the orders the boss keeps on giving him. Back to the present, Hoyeon suddenly receives a trespasser alarm as a powerful fog appears outside the gym. The instructor recognizes the energy emanated by the fog and asks the master if that man really came. Outside the gym, Cheonhak stands menacingly while looking enraged. Gato recognizes the man and calls out to him. The man greets him, who turns out to be his fourth older brother. He then tells him that he should know the purpose of his visit. As Gato tries to explain, he simply interrupts him, saying that there can be no reason that could satisfy him. He finds it ridiculous that the older brother who left the gym on his own to start his own martial arts is now taking care of street thugs, making Hoyeon and Kizer angry while Lena jokingly calms them down. Gato admits that time really is harsh for him to stoop this low, and that he doesn't have much time, taunting his brother that he also has much less now that he has threatened him, adding that he stole and modified their master's textbook and has now turned their old gym into the spy training center of the criminal guild. Cheonhak tells him to shut up and that the reason he did what he did was to preserve their martial arts, because the master didn't want to give the textbook to anyone else. Gato finds it funny that he is saying that since he lost the master's trust due to slacking off in training and getting involved in debauchery. Cheonhak becomes offended and strikes back by saying that Gato only moved out because of a woman, so he has no say in this. He then gets tired of their argument and challenges his brother to a fight, which he enthusiastically accepts, causing the others to think this was a trashy drama as they munched on popcorn. They then get ready to fight after Gato steps out onto the streets. After starting the fight, Cheonhak swiftly gathers energy and releases it towards Gato, which he quickly sees coming, and prepares to receive the attack. He then uses his skill to divert the energy, and sends it back using the skill counter-punch, causing the energy to explode on impact after reaching the target. But Cheonhak comes out unscathed even after being directly hit by the attack. He then becomes enraged after seeing his lowly strength, which he trained after breaking their brotherhood. Gato is surprised that he came out unfazed, and quickly recognizes the technique he used, while the others continue to watch their intense duel. Hoyeon asks them if they saw the technique, but Kizer doesn't reply and instead crushes the popcorn. Suddenly, the police arrive and try to stop their unapproved duel in the streets. As they clear out the fog to see the perpetrators, they slowly start to make out who the ones fighting are. But Cheonhak is the first to recognize their presence, which causes the police to quickly identify him from the gym downtown. And they also recognize Kizer in the back as the troublemaker from a while back. Seeing that the perpetrators are such powerful people from different organizations, they decide to be on standby and observe them since the situation is dangerous. The citizens also see the commotion and start to gather, while a popcorn seller arrives, further attracting more people. Keezer sees the crowd and thinks that the situation is fun while Hoyan is panicking at the back. The police then start to protect the safety of the citizens who came to watch the fight, which causes Hoyan to realize that they might be in another big mess right now. Now that there are a ton of people watching, his association's reputation will fluctuate depending on the outcome of this fight. But Gato's condition is not good since he is now exhausted, and they are also not able to fight due to them not knowing martial arts. Suddenly, Keezer shouts and hypes up the fight, saying that the foolish citizens should watch since this will go down in history, as he uses his speech skill named Eloquence. Gato looks back at him, wondering what he just did. Hoyan also looks at him, wondering what the hell he is trying to do. As the crowd hears his announcement, they wonder who he meant by foolish, making the atmosphere even worse than before. But the crowd suddenly agrees that they are foolish due to the skill used, which amps up the fight even more. Lena is impressed by his crowd work, while Hoyan panics even more now that the crowd is even more engaged in the fight. So the police start calming down the citizens due to their sudden frenzy, leaving the fight to continue. Cheonhak states that one of them needs to die for this battle to end, causing Gato to take a deep breath, before deciding that he doesn't care who lives and that he will now attack first. He then starts to attack using the first form of Baekbakwan, then suddenly lunges at him after using the skill Gallant Devotion. But as his attack reaches Cheonhak, an illusion takes his place as he disappears out of sight. He realizes that Cheonhak used sorcery to evade his attack, which was the reason why he covered the place with fog. He then looks around in an attempt to find his opponent. Suddenly, Cheonhak appears behind him, ready to attack, but Hoyan manages to warn him, so he blocks the attack at the last second right before it hits. Though he still takes a bit of damage as Cheonhak disappears into the fog once again. The citizens berate Hoyan for interfering with the fight, while Hoyan seems to be focused on something. He asks Keezer if he saw that as well, to which he replies, asking what he meant, before also realizing what he was talking about. The attack that hit Gato left a weird effect on his body as Hoyan calls it strange. Gato then becomes enraged after seeing what has been done to their master's martial arts, though Cheonhak simply states that the power their master used has always been antinomical, and asks him if he wasn't aware of that fact, which is supported by their master's narrow-mindedness and ego that clings to tradition. But he simply denies it, saying that he just turned their martial art into a tool used for murder. Cheonhak is offended by his words and states that he just discovered its boundless potential. He then decides to show it by using the fourth form of the Cheonhak martial art named Pressure Point Strike. As the attack is unleashed, Gato is left defenseless, easily getting his body due to him being unable to react in time. Hoyan shouts in concern for his well-being, while the crowd cheers at the excitement brought by the match. Fortunately, Gato is still alive, but is barely able to walk. But a wave of energy suddenly appears beside him, revealing Cheonhak, who is hiding through an illusion, saying that his attack is not yet over, right before slicing him in the back with his power. Lena is impressed by his skills, while the boss is left panicking. Seeing the effect left on Gato's body again, Keezer now realizes what his boss was pointing out earlier. But Hoyan tells him that it's not the time for analyzing stuff and to rescue Gato. Though he ignores him and says that the old man tried to dodge the attack earlier, Lena supports his statement, adding that his timing was also perfect. Hoyan also noticed it but wonders how he still took damage, but they fail to find an answer, while Caesar enjoys the fight after seeing such profound attacks, telling his boss that he'll watch a bit more, causing Hoyan to become irritated since he wants him to do something about this situation. The old man now struggles to even stand after receiving 2 attacks, which also causes him to spew out blood. Cheonhak tells him that he has not much time left, also due to his aging body, and asks if this was the reason he lured him out using the Black Mountain Association. Gato takes a deep breath and says that he didn't want to be found out like this, though Cheonhak mercilessly continues to taunt him by saying that he will die today, while Gato readily accepts his fate. So he starts to gather energy from the surroundings. Fully aware that he is going to die, he then challenges Cheonhak to one last exchange of attacks, causing the others to wonder what he's about to do. The instructor tries to stop him, saying that the technique he is gonna use is too dangerous, but he continues to do so anyway, making even Cheonhak surprised after seeing him prepare to launch the skill, since he has never seen the breathing technique Gato is using with the skill, and he also suspects that he's going to use some sort of wave technique after seeing a highly concentrated energy, so he becomes even more cautious, and tries to stop the skill before he launches it. But Gato thanks him for saving him the effort of approaching him, causing Cheonhak to realize something. It's that he is planning to use his self-destruct skill to take down both of them at once. He then launches the final technique named Backbow Law as a bright light envelops the two of them, causing Gato's student to call after him. This bright light blinds everyone, including the bystanders watching nearby. The skill also causes pieces of rubble to fly over the gang as Keezer laughs in joy after seeing such a magnificent attack. But after the technique ends, they still see someone standing, making Hoyeon worried as he expects the worst. The citizens also stare in shock at the outcome of the battle. Even the police are left speechless at the sight. A wave of energy erupts from the scene of the battle, as it reveals Cheonghak unscathed while calling the now dead Gato pathetic, and then asks who is next. He points to Caesar, asking if he wants to go. But the instructor Baksu assumes that he is the one being pointed at, so he prepares to battle him with tears in his eyes. Though Caesar simply slaps him away, then asks Cheonghak how he came out unscathed, even after receiving such a powerful attack at point blank. Cheonghak looks at his face carefully and realizes that he is the thug sent by Baekbo Jim. So he asks how he managed to escape, to which Lena replies, saying that she helped him as she played with his face. She then adds that she is quite disappointed after seeing that the criminal guild she once worked for is only that strong, since she thought that there was potential seeing that they had many trainees, but in the end, they were still completely helpless to even touch them in the slightest. Further insulting him by saying that his gym is more like a lackey training center, which obviously causes Cheonghak to become enraged, while Hoyeon scolds the two for worsening the situation, making the man wonder who he is. Hoyeon is scared that an event he thinks of might activate if he leaves them be, so he tries to introduce himself to Cheonghak in order to defuse the situation, only to be met with insults telling him not to interrupt him and calling him a wimp, enraging both Hoyeon and Kizer in the process. His two underlings then scold the man for looking down on him just because the boss is ensnared by an incurable curse, causing Cheonghak to mistakenly think that Hoyeon is the absolute master who fell into the intoxication state, which adds another misunderstanding to Hoyeon's long list. Cheonghak then acknowledges the fact that the reason his brother threw away his life is due to his great influence, making Hoyeon become even more frustrated at the misunderstanding, though he continues to say that he is now done, and that he will now declare a war with his whole gym at stake. Kizer and Lynette accept the challenge, betting the Baekbo gym to make it fair as Hoyeon stands defeated. The citizens are hyped up after hearing the declaration of war, while the police struggle to calm them down, and Baksu lies on the floor crying after they bet on the gym. Now the text box states that the organization event has successfully activated. Although Gato died in the fight, the activation of the event managed to prevent the organization's reputation from declining. Some organization events like power clashes play a crucial role in taking over other organizations. And during an organization event, criminal acts are tolerated as the guard's strict supervision is loosened. The system then urges Hoyeon to take over organizations one by one and become a monarch of the underworld, as he silently sits at the Black Mountain Bar's dinner table. He then asks Caesar what gave him the idea to cause this much trouble, to which he replies saying that he is looking for a flawless fight, confusing Hoyeon and warranting an insult from Lena. The boss tells him that it's ridiculous to have such trouble just because of a no-damage clear that he wants to achieve. Kizer corrects him, saying that cowardly avoiding incoming attacks cannot be called a true no-damage fight. He said that he realized such a fact after witnessing the fight against the Cheonghak family. Despite receiving Gato's desperate attack head-on, he still looked indifferent and unfazed. So he tells him that once they conquer their gym, then they would be able to obtain the secret technique he used. Before laughing out loud in a frenzy as Hoyeon plants his face into his hands. He then thinks about Caesar's mad obsession with strength and questions why it was allowed for a henchman to meddle with a player more than necessary. Though things have been going well so far, he thinks that it is just due to his luck. Looking back, he realizes that all of his plans have been ruined by Caesar, and if this goes on, something bad might happen, which makes him think about what to do for a moment before telling them that he has somewhere he needs to go and that they shouldn't cause any trouble while he's gone. He then starts to disconnect from the labyrinth world and successfully logs out, waking up with a VR headset strapped to his face. As he lies in a dull-looking bed, he sits upright with his headset still on, before taking it off and letting out a sigh. He then starts to feel a headache induced by staying in the game for so long. Since there are 10 days left before the war, he still has 1 day left in real life to take a break, and decides to catch his breath outside. He then goes into a restaurant inside the city and orders a large burger. His companion notices that he has eaten quite a lot, so he asks what's wrong. Hoyeon pauses with food left in his mouth, before tearing up as he remembers his current predicament, causing his friend to ask if his game life is doomed for him to be acting this way. He also sympathizes with Hoyeon, saying that the latest version of the Labyrinth series has been causing problems within their company, since they made major upgrades not only to the dungeon but also to the everyday life areas, causing some menacing gangsters to wreak havoc right from the start. Though he isn't sure how it is being handled, he heard that the managers gave up on the situation and are just waiting to see what happens. This reminds him that he also heard a rumor saying that Hoyeon refused an offer to continue as a named ranker, so he asks why he decided to start the game from scratch, jokingly adding that he's amazed by his dedication to gaming. But Hoyeon ignores him and continues to ask about the managers giving up, causing his friend to be taken aback. But he decides to let go of the topic, and instead tells him that he believes that his actions are important for the game to proceed peacefully. Since the Labyrinth world has taken an unknown path, his past as Rodelius Eldrigo, who attained a ranker status through selfless gameplay, will be crucial to improving the state of the game. This causes Huyen to recall a bitter memory, where he was still Rodelius Eldrigo at rank 97 in the Labyrinth City, with a class called Orphanage Director. He then continues to think about how it all started due to humans wanting to be as strong as they desire, and has now reached a point where basic nutritional needs, exercise, and proper sleep can be taken care of without moving an inch inside a VR game. Pondering that humans sought after a new realm of challenges to keep chasing the limitless potential they possess. And through that, they have been able to create a completely different world that transcends reality, which Huyen himself has reached every possibility within. And the reason he went back to the real world is to gain information from somewhere that can only be gained from reality, which is from Ulden Park, an intern from the Labyrinth City Developer Company. They continue to sit in silence, while Huyen thinks about why the managers decided to give up on managing the game since it's not even a failure, causing him to suspect them of planning something. And looking at Ulden, he can see how much he loves the game after looking so disheartened. So he starts to take it easy, but he remembers that he is the one ruining the game, so he can't really say much. And instead he comforts him, saying that he will make things work somehow. Then he changes the topic to Ulden's game life to gain information. Ulden tells him a secret, revealing that he actually works for the criminal guild in the game. He says that he managed to get himself a decent position despite being only a subordinate, though unfortunately, his boss turned out to be a complete psychopath, and tells him about his nasty temper and betting his own gym on a petty brawl, causing Huyen to have an idea of who that person might be. Furthermore, he talks about the gang they challenged, which turned out to be recently formed and is called the Black Mountain Association, confirming Huyen's suspicion. He continues to complain about his in-game problems while Huyen starts to realize what he just said, tightening his fist in excitement. He now has an idea of what to do next as he smiles disgustingly. After a while in the main building of Chinonghak Gym, Varden and the instructor face each other in a room. Yomu thanks Varden for letting him go, but he replies saying that he shouldn't be all relaxed since there are repercussions to his mistake. So he tells him that they have to go and do something right away before Master Chinonghak finds out, adding that the thug they caught was stronger than expected. Varden interrupts, saying that Gato has died by Chinonghak's hands and that he also heard that an assassin was present at the scene where Yomu was defeated, causing Yomu to panic. But Varden also adds that Chinonghak challenged them to a spar by betting the gym, which makes him beam with joy, knowing that they are safe for now. But he simply turns away and calls him an idiot. Night came as the streets were enveloped in the warm embrace of the moon. There we see Varden walking around alone, while thinking that his master cannot lose. As long as the opponents have no clue what his secret skill is, victory is guaranteed to be in their favor. But his face turns sour upon remembering the humiliation his master caused him, making him think if he really wants to continue treading down this path. But suddenly, smoke starts to appear from nowhere, which slowly gathers around him. He then asks who is making all that smoke while Lena comes up beside him, but he notices too late, giving her a chance to attack him. And so he is knocked out while his screams echo throughout the streets. In a few moments, he is tied up and brought to an unknown location. He regains consciousness and is revealed to be Huyen's friend from earlier, named Ulden Park. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on THUGS channel.